Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Planning Committee. I am Councillor Emma Sidhu and I'm the Chair of the Committee. Please be aware this meeting is being filmed, live streamed and will be uploaded to the Council YouTube channel. If you'd like to introduce every member, please.
Councillor John Stroud-Turp.
Councillor Ghazala Bird.
Councillor Marina Sharma.
Councillor Tom Bruce.
Councillor Farah Kamran.
Councillor Adesh Parmahan.
Councillor Saya Raza.
Councillor Dan Bowring.
Councillor Max Mosley.
Councillor Gurmel Lal.
Thank you. Members of the public are reminded that the agenda and all reports being considered by the committee tonight can be found on the council website under the Planning Committee pages. So if you want to see them, that's where to look. I also want to make sure that all members have seen the agenda and reports. Please speak now if you have not had them. Yeah. We're going to introduce the top table.
Name is Michael Jones. I'm the solicitor advising the committee.
Good evening. I'm Jackie Long, one of the planning officers for here today.
My name is Zara Rod, planning officer for the first item of the planning application.
Rob Heslop, Head of Transport Planning and Road Safety, and advising on transport issues tonight.
I'm Bill Lee, I'm the clerk.
There are 5 applications for decision to consider by the members this evening, all of which will proceed in the same way as followed. The report will be presented by an officer who might highlight the main points. An officer will then respond to questions from members of the Planning Committee. We will then hear from the residents who have ejected the application. They will have 5 minutes between them, and the legal advisor will time them and give them a 30-second notice before the time is up. Committee members may then ask the objectors questions. We will then hear from the applicant. They have 5 minutes between them, and the legal advisor will time them and give them 30 seconds notice before the time is up. Committee members may then ask the applicants questions. Members will then debate the application and make their decisions this evening. A formal notification and decisions will be sent to the application of any interest parties who made written representations. The minutes will be published after the meeting. We now move to any apologies of absence.
I've received apologies from Councillor Danish Saeed.
Okay. Anybody else? I think we've got full house.
No,
Yeah.
full house.
Yeah. Any declarations of interest? Yeah. Tom.
I'm sure this is the same for most people. I've had emails on 4, 5, 6 and 7. And also personally, I need to declare that on item 4 as my role as lead member for Planet Regeneration and Development, which includes planning. I have met with the applicant, but with officers present as well. And very clearly, I've made no indication of my views on it, but it was merely to receive information about the application. And this was some months ago. So I come to this with an absolute open mind, Chair.
Adesh, Councillor Adesh.
Thank you, Chair. I received emails regarding agenda 4, 5 and 6. Thank you.
Councillor Dan Bowling.
Same. Received the emails. I think we've all received.
I think we've all received, haven't we? Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just add something? So for declaration of interest, items 6 and 7, It's just because I have a family member that actually goes to that school.
Councillor John Todd?
Just to declare with others, I'm a trustee of Chiswick House Trust.
Next, the minutes of the last meeting. Can we agree the meeting? Now we are moving to agenda item number 4, number 1, Burlington Lane, Chiswick. I'd like to invite the officer to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. This item is the 4th item of the agenda related to a full application at number 1 Burlington Lane, W4 2RR. This application was previously in agenda on 1st of May. Following a review of the consultation responses, further information was required before the scheme could be presented. As a result, the application was deferred. There have been no material changes to the proposal scheme being brought to the committee tonight. This is a summary of the proposal: demolition of the existing 5-story building, construction of a Part 3, Part 6, Part 10 story building comprising 132 residential homes, including 13 affordable homes, 314 square meter flexible commercial floor spaces Class E use, improvement to the public realm, and associated works such as car parking, private and communal amenity space, refuse and waste facilities, cycle storage facilities. This is the site location plan. The site is bordered by Burlington Lane, Hogarth Lane and Hogarth Flyover, Hogarth Roundabout at the corner, Palladian Gardens, and Chiswick Gate residential development to its west, Premier Inn to its west to the northwest side. The site has a PTAL rating 1B, considered as very poor access to the public transport. Before presenting the proposal, a brief overview of the consented scheme is provided, which is considered the fallback position for this application. In the presentation, it might refer to it as a consented scheme or approved scheme. Both terms refer to the fallback position scheme. The consented scheme was submitted under a planning application and initially was refused by the council. The scheme proposed the provision of 104 new flats through conversion of the existing building plus 2-floor extension at the top. The scheme was subsequently permitted at appeal on 12 April 2024. Implementation of the consented scheme has now commenced. As such, the fallback position is considered to carry significant weight in the planning balance, likely outcome should the current application be refused. At the ground floor, we can see concentration of car and cycle parking facilities, it is not considered the best use of the space. This slide shows a typical residential unit layout from first floor to fourth floor of this fallback position. Each floor has long corridors and 22 units, with 77% of them being single aspects. Only 70 of the units have access to private outdoor space, such as balconies. On every floor, 10 units rely solely on light from the internal court, and some of these only receive north-facing light, which is generally less effective. The courtyard itself is quite limited in size, measuring a maximum of 16 meters in length, 12 meters in width, and it is enclosed by walls approximately 15 meters high. In this section, gives a better view of the depth of the courtyard and the arrangement of the balconies that face into it. Overall, this resulted in poor standard of accommodation, which was one of the reasons for refusal. This is the layout of the additional top floor at the fallback position scheme. Larger and family homes are provided at top floor. The fallback scheme would provide only 7.7% family homes with no affordable homes. The open amenity space would be provided at the courtyard and the roof floor as shown in this plan. It will be a combination of play spaces and general open amenity spaces. Still, the open space falls short by 500 square meters against the required provision. Officers' main concerns were regarding the quality of these open spaces in terms of safety and convenience of use for users. Here is the proposed landscaping around the site, with only minimal landscaping proposed within the site boundary. This is considered not a very high quality public realm space for a development which provides 104 new homes. In addition, the proposal would introduce 390 square meters of offices with no active frontage. This is the approved facade along Palladium Gardens. One of the main reasons for refusal was the poor visual appearance and low design quality. The proposal did not fit well with the surrounding townscape or reflect the character of the area, especially when compared to nearby development like the newer and more modern Chiswick Gate residential scheme. This is another elevation. This is a CGI of the consented scheme as demonstrated here. From the second floor upward, the building would project beyond the existing footprint towards the road, resulting in poor relation with the adjacent building and offering no enhancement to the current streetscape. While retaining the existing structure could be considered a sustainable benefit, this alone does not outweigh the poor quality of accommodation and appearance, particularly due to lack of adequate private and communal amenity space and the limited incorporation of sustainable measures. There are a few photos illustrating the current condition of the building. So some photos from the Hogarth roundabout, more photos showing different elevation of the existing building. Here is more photo. Here is photos showing the Chiswick Gate new development and the building subject of this application. Here is some photos showing the passageway of Hogarth roundabout, which is in poor condition. This passageway would provide a connection between different parts of the roundabout, and due to the poor connection, now it is considered as unsafe for pedestrians and other users such as cyclists. To arrive to the current proposed scheme, 2 pre-application submissions were made since 2023 for the redevelopment of the site for mixed-use purposes. comprising residential and flexible commercial. The first pre-application proposed a 20-story building. The second pre-application proposed a height of up to 14 story. Following this, a PPA, which is Planning Performance Agreement, was held in 2024 for a revised scheme of up to 12 story, providing 134 new homes. During the PPA stage 2, DPR, which is Design Review Panel meetings, were held to assess and refine the proposal. From this slide onward, the proposal will be presented in details. This is a model showing the proposed site. The tallest element would have 10 stories. The design includes a basement and a ground floor that covers the entire site, with buildings constructed above. The building facing Palladian Gardens would appear as 3-story. The building next to the Premier Inn along Hogarth Lane would be 5-story. The tallest building facing Burlington Lane and Hogarth Roundabout would be 10-story. This slide illustrates a diagram showing the distribution of uses across different levels on site. This slide shows the proposed GIA across the site. This is the proposed housing mix and tenure are shown in this table. 40% one bedroom, 41% two bedroom, 19% family home, which is 3 and 4 bedrooms. Social rent would be family homes, which are in favor of the council housing target. The proposed scheme also includes 10% wheelchair accessible homes. Here is the comparison housing mix between the consented scheme and the proposal here. As shown, the current proposal would provide 15% more family homes. This is the proposed ground floor layout. Flexible commercial spaces shown in blue, gym area marked in green, residential lobbies are highlighted in pink. Cycle and parking storage and car parking and cycle storage is partly included on that floor, and most of them at basement. Car access is shown with a red arrow. Cycle access is available through different entrances leading the ground level cycle storage and lift to the basement. Commercial access is marked with blue arrows coming from Burlington Lane and Palladian Gardens. Here is the basement. This slide shows the relationship with the levels. The car parking facilities would include car stackers. Here is the layout of the residential building at the first floor, or the residential home would have access to the central courtyard. The scheme submitted a viability assessment showing that 7 social rent homes would be delivered on site, which are marked with a red dashed line. This assessment was reviewed by GLA and an independent third party on behalf of the council, and after extensive discussion, it was agreed that the maximum number of affordable homes the scheme could support was 13, which includes 7 social rent and 6 shared ownership. The proposed shared ownership units would located across the 1st to 4th floor of the tallest building on site. Here is the green roof and solar panels. The proposal has been assessed in terms of energy, sustainable material, and carbon emission is considered sustainable development with all measures. This is a CGI image of the proposed facade showing the proposed material. The building would use exposed horizontal band, exposed vertical fines, brick slabs, triple glazed windows, metal balustrade, and the two top floor wood glazing aiken. This material will continue with the same for all the elevations. Here is some CGI view from Hogarth roundabout and other angle for the proposal. The scheme would create an active frontage at the ground floor to promote flexible commercial class use E. The courtyard podium, referred by the applicant as a residential garden, is designed to connect well with the surrounding building, creating a link between private and open spaces. Play spaces for less than 4 years and 5 to 12 years would be provided on site. This is a section of public realm and landscaping. The proposal includes improvement to the surrounding public realm located outside of the site boundary, including planting trees, new paving to the front of the building, and improved access to the pedestrian underpass. The scheme would enhance the access to the underground passageway. Overall, the design aimed to improve how people move through the spaces and how clearly the layout is understood. In this section, the concentration is on the impact on the heritage asset. The application site is located at a prominent location. The site is not listed, but it is within Chiswick House Conservation Area. There were concerns about the visibility of the proposed 10-story building, so its visual impact was carefully assessed. GLA, Historic England, and the Council's conservation team were all consulted, and their views were taken into account during the assessment. This slide shows the variety of the townscape character in the area. The Old Chiswick Conservation Area and Chiswick Mall in yellow, Devonshire Estate and Roads in blue, and Chiswick House, Hogarth Roundabout, and Chiswick Gate are shown in different colors. Here is the list of listed buildings within the radius of 500 meters of the site. A couple of photos showing Hogarth House and Chiswick House listed buildings. The Chiswick House Conservation Area appraisal identified the building at number 1 Burlington as a negative feature that detracts from the surrounding heritage assets within the conservation area. Here is the list of the key area of element of the heritage assets. The townscape and visual impact assessment submitted by the application has been tested through a range of views at different distances. In some views, the new buildings would be prominent additions to the townscape. Harms are identified from some of the views. The following slide shows key views which would be affected by the proposal. Due to the lack of time and the length of the presentation, we just selected some of the views for the key heritage assets which will be affected by the proposal, starting with Chiswick House and its gardens. This view from Chiswick House and from the lake footpath, the upper level of the proposal would be visible through a gap between the tree line and the portico of Chiswick House. With less screening from the trees during winter, the 10-story element would be visible, whereas in summer, trees would increase in screening. However, it would still be visible. This is another view from Chiswick House portico, looking towards the proposed scheme from Italian Garden and Conservatory. After all assessment, the harm to the grade 1 listed building and the gardens categorized as middle of the less than substantial spectrum by the council. The other heritage asset would be impacted is St. Nicholas Church and Thames Pass. The image on the left shows that church is visible to some extent from around 2 kilometers across the river. Vegetation along the northern edge of the pass helps to partially screen views, reducing how much of the new building can be seen. Field study found that the 10-story building would only be visible behind the church along a 245-meter stretch, as shown in the right image. The harm is assessed as less than substantial at the middle level. Within that stretch, only about 10 to 15 meters offer a clear view towards Old Chiswick and proposed development. This considered that has a less than substantial harm with low degree of adverse impact. Here is a view within the 245 meters showing the 10-story element behind the St. Nicholas, which would have an adverse effect on the character of this setting. This slide compares the existing view and the proposed view, again with St. Nicholas at the background. The other heritage has been viewed here in this presentation is the Hogarth House garden. This is the current view from the garden of Hogarth House looking toward the site. The new development at Chiswick Gate is visible directly behind the listed building in the background. This view shows the 10-story building from the garden of Hogarth Lane in red. There will be some impact, however, the harmful impact of building already in the background with Chiswick Gate could also be seen. Therefore, the proposal would cause less than substantial harm to the setting of Hogarth's house to lower end of the test. Here is a summary of the harm to the key views in the surrounding area of the site by Historic England, GLA, and the Council Conservation Team. Given above, the current proposal would result in harm to the setting of significant heritage assets at the low to middle levels of less than substantial harm. The Council acknowledged that harm will occur. In accordance with paragraph 212 of NPPF, where less than substantial harm to the significance of a designated heritage asset is identified, this might be given substantial weight. And as advised paragraph 215 of NPPF, this harm needs to be balanced against the public benefits of the proposal through a clear and balanced planning judgment. Therefore, the Council has done the balancing exercise. This balancing act involves assessing the impact on the heritage assets significant, considering potential public benefits and making reasoned judgment. Detail of the public benefits are reviewed, and here is a summary of the list. Housing delivery, significant weight. Affordable homes, significant weight. Public realm enhancement, significant weight. Employment, commercial space, moderate weight. Townscape enhancement, moderate weight. High quality of home standard, moderate weight. Energy and sustainability, moderate weight. Obligation including Section 106, Section 27(8) seal contribution are considered at public benefit. Here is a summary of fallback position. Here, this table shows which significant weight as here is a summary of the fallback position, which should have significant weight as commencement process. Less homes, no affordable homes, poor standard of accommodation, poor quality of design, as reviewed earlier. The proposed scheme is considered an appropriate response to the opportunity presented by the site. It would deliver 132 new homes, 13 affordable homes, which have significant weight. There would be improvement in environment, social, and economic benefit to the area, most notably through the delivery of the significant number of new homes, the regeneration of a currently unused site, and enhancement to landscaping and public realm. This improvement includes better conditions for walking, cycling, as well as increased economic activity. Paragraph 11 of NPPF highlights the presumption of favor of sustainable development, which is central to the planning balance. A full assessment has been carried out in line with paragraph 212 and 215, given substantial weight to the impact on heritage assets. Paragraph 125 of NPPF has also been considered, which supports the reuse of suitable brownfield land within settlements to meet housing or other identified needs. Such proposals should generally be approved unless they cause substantial harm, which the harm which identified here is less than substantial harm. Taking all this into account, the proposed scheme is considered acceptable on balance as the public benefit are judged to outweigh the identified less than substantial harm to heritage assets. Therefore, approval is recommended.
Thank you. I'd like to invite questions from members for the officer, please. Councillor John.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Very, very comprehensive. As you're probably aware, this scheme has attracted a lot of comment and objections. Many of the objections of a very similar nature. But what I thought was worth doing, perhaps, to save us time as we go on, could I just rehearse some of those objections with you and get your response to them? I think that would be helpful. First of all, one of the main objections seems to be the height and the massing of the building and the fact it's generally out of scale with what's currently on the site. Do you want me to go through them all, or would you like to take them one at a time?
I think that if we go one by one.
Okay, that's the first one. It's massing, it's out of scale, and it's the height of the massing, and effectively just wrapped up in that is it rather dominates what is known as Old Chiswick. If you could deal with that one first, please.
At the moment, the building on site has about 21 meter height. The scheme which has been consented, which we call it as fallback position, would have a 25 meter in height. This proposal would provide a height of 34 meter. So already on site, it is a tall building. The matter of is it a predominant or not, it's considered different facts. For example, the wide area, how the relation of the building with is the road, and etc., which all of them has been considered with urban design team. And generally, through the reduction of the height from the first proposal we had for this site, it is considered, it is still tall, but not that much tall that which say that it can be detract from the townscape.
Okay, so you don't believe that the bulk and the massing represent tangible planning grounds for objection on this? Is that your view?
From the assessment that we had, again, from our urban design and all the team, it seems that the height is acceptable. Specifically, the two top floor would be glazed, which reduce the kind of visual impact of 10-story.
Okay. The next one, which features in a lot of the objections, is the loss of light and privacy to surrounding properties.
For any application and any proposal in this size, definitely will ask for sunlight daylight assessment and overshadow assessment, which we have received. And all of this shows that the impact from the sunlight daylight to the surrounding area is not an issue, as we can consider the result of these tests. So we didn't consider it has impact.
Okay, thank you. The next objection, which features fairly significantly, is the heritage impact, specifically on the conservation area of Old Chiswick, especially the views from Chiswick House. What's the view on those two particular areas?
The heritage impact is one of our concern. From the first day we have the pre-application for this site, and in presentation you could see that it was some slide showing that it has some impact, but considering GLA, Historic England, and the conservation team within the council, all of them considered the harm is at the setting and it is less than substantial, and it was degree between middle to low. So generally, it is considered that the impact, considering the benefit, the public benefit that the site would have, on balance, outweighed that.
Okay, and before someone else can have a turn in a second, but last one from me. It's there's only one entrance point to it, which for vehicles rather. So there is a certain amount of concern, or a lot of concern from some residents, that this is going to lead to increased congestion on the 316, as all traffic will have to come along the 316. And from my personal point of view, there seems to be an inordinately large number of car parking spaces, 67 being allocated to 132 properties, which is way in excess of what we would normally be granting, notwithstanding the relatively low IPTL score. But that seems an excessive amount of car parking space, which will generate traffic on the 316.
I separate your question in two. First bit I will answer, and maybe the next bit Rob can answer that part. In terms of the entrance, the site has been, as this 5-story building has been as office for many years. And I can't remember the number of the parking at the time as an offices, but I can imagine it was a handful of the car parking. So coming and going for the use of this building was there for many years. The scheme, which we call it as fallback position, offers too many parking area, about 190, if I remember correctly, which consider to that one, this development even has more homes, it still has less parking. But in terms of the 67 numbers is adequate or not, I leave it to my colleague, Rob.
Yeah, so the car parking numbers are actually set out in the report, paragraph 9.272. So there are 107 parking spaces on the site at the moment, which would reduce to 67. As Zara said, there's an existing office use on the site, which will generate traffic at that point. TfL are the Highway Authority for the A316 and have reviewed the application. So they're satisfied with the trip generation of the potential traffic generation. I think the parking is obviously measured against London Plan parking standards. So falling within that assessment, within that sort of standard, then it would be considered acceptable. Although I do take up your point that normally we would look at as lower levels of parking as we can on the site.
Yeah, I mean, normally we go low and we'd insist it was either virtually all EV or disabled. I see no mention of EV here at all.
So again, in the paragraph 9.272 says that the proposal would be to reduce the number of spaces to 67, which includes 15 disabled parking spaces and 14 EV charging spaces as well. So that's
sorry.
And it would need to conform with London Plan in both of those respects.
Any other questions? Councillor Dunbar?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. That's a really in-depth report. Just a quick question. So the proposed application, it's sort of about £6 million in SIL. Does the fallback position provide any SIL? And then a question for Michael: is that a material concern? Thank you.
The matter of the quantum of the SIL is not a consideration to take into account when considering the merits of the scheme as compared with the fallback position.
John Todd?
Thank you. Can I ask you to look at page 67, please, young lady? 67, paragraph 9138, please. I frequently read the letter sent to you from Historic England, which, far from saying they have a distilled view or distillated view, they scream out and saying strongly object and other similar phrases. We now look at page 67, and I see the applicant provided a briefing note on the comparative assessment of heritage harm in response to Historic England's assessment. Did they have a chance to respond to that?
Sorry, could you just repeat your question?
Certainly, if you want to, yes. Yeah.
I just found the paragraph here.
Okay, I do apologise if I've gone too quickly. So you've seen that you were provided with a briefing note by the applicant following a response from Historical England. Did they have a chance? Did Historical England have a chance to respond?
When we received the response from the applicant, we forwarded to the Historic England. Historic England reviewed the submission, and they confirmed that the position is the same. So that less than substantial harm was confirmed.
Okay. Can you help us, please, on tall buildings? Historic England's letter says that the building is in an area where there shouldn't be tall buildings. Is that correct or not?
Sorry, which paragraph is it?
It's not in your report. It's in the correspondence from Historical England.
Okay. So what did they say? Could you just repeat it? Sorry.
It just says where tall buildings will not be an appropriate form of development in the conservation area.
Yes. Again, when we talk about tall building, considering the guidance we have from London Plan and also from the local plan, so it could be relatively considered in terms of other buildings in that area. Considering the existing building, the height of the existing building, the consented height, and the height of the building at the consented scheme, so the height of 10-story on site plus those 2-story on the top, which will be glazed, is considered acceptable. It was the answer and assessment we had.
Okay. but I repeat what it said. It includes conservation areas as locations where tall buildings will not be an appropriate form of development. That's quite a simple statement.
Yes, they identified as this building as a tall building, and it is not appropriate. But what at the same time they assess is that this height would have less than substantial harm to the heritage assets.
Okay, well, a lot of figures have been thrown around, but would you agree with me that the new height is double the size of the previous one?
It is not double. The height of the existing building is about 21 meters. The consented scheme would have around 25, 26 meter height. And this building, which is the proposed proposal here, would have 35 meter. So it is about 9 to 10 meter above the consented scheme.
Okay. I want to go back to a basic thought, if you wouldn't mind. Hundreds of people have objected. This is one of the strongest letters from Historical England I've ever seen. And it's unambiguous, very clear. They're totally against it, as is our MP, most of our councillors, and hundreds of members of the public, 2 local authorities. That anger, that frustration, that lack of being heard is sort of assuaged in trivia here.
We understand the objections. We understand that how public could be, how some of the public could be frustrated with the proposal, but the procedure we have and we continue is what we learned from NPPF. NPPF says that when the less than substantial harm is identified, then we need to exercise the public benefit. The public benefit that this proposal could bring to the area somehow would outweigh the harm, which is this less than substantial harm. This less than substantial harm is confirmed by Historic England, GLA, and the conservation team within the council.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Max Mosley.
Thank you. I have 2 questions related to the financial viability assessment, mostly relating to the fact that it's obviously been used to justify very low levels of affordable housing. So the first one is relating to the valuations. There are assumed valuations and the return on the investments with the sizes of the properties that are going to be created. So on page 22 of the financial budget assessment, it says that they will only receive £867,000 for a 4-bedroom flat in Chiswick. While I totally appreciate that this is, an independent assessment and that they probably have done their due diligence when it comes to assessing market rates, I do just find this quite hard to believe. A quick, and again, I appreciate this is anecdotal, but a quick search on Rightmove will show that a similar property will go for north of £1.2 million, even the ones that are next to the A4, which was used to justify the sort of slightly more cut price valuation. But given that lower valuation is, I think, one of the central drivers behind the reason that they can't justify having any more affordable homes, I think this is really important. So what I'm asking is, if in the future they do get a slightly higher return, which I would suggest is likely, can they make any provisions to increase the number of affordable homes later down the line, given that potential reality?
With regards to your second part of your question, with the section 106, we have mechanism to review. So we have early and late review of the viability. So definitely on that stage, we will pick up that. In regard the first part of your question, the point is that we rely and we understand that the third party will review everything. So as an officer, we look at the outcome of this assessment.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. And then my second question on a similar theme, I know that the PBG allows for assumptions of return to be between 15 and 20% profit margins. And on page 32 of the viability assessment, it suggests that they have incorporated a 17.5% profit margin, which is obviously between the two. So they haven't taken the minimum. And they justify this on the basis that there's negative market sentiment. This report was written in July of last year, I believe. So that's reflecting the market sentiment of over a year ago. So I'll just underscore that, yes, it is good to hear that there is potential for late stage reviews. So I would expect market conditions to improve and we can increase the number of affordable homes. But just for my own benefit, I would just like to know whether, for future reference, when there is a proposed development that is only going to incorporate a low number of affordable homes, would it not be incumbent on us to assume that it would be a lower return as a result, given the lack of ability to be able to meet the needs of our residents?
Thank you, Councillor. Again, so it is our independent consultant that ran through that profit margin as well, and it's to do with the risk at the time of the application and so on and so forth. And I mean, I will say that 17.5% is not unusual for an application of this type. That doesn't comprehensively answer that question, but I don't think we've got much else to offer other than, as I say, it's the experts that have gone through. So if you're raising concerns of it and asking us to present evidence at an appeal, we don't think we'll be on a very strong standing when it comes to that.
Councillor Gazalaba.
Thank you, Chair. I have one question regarding the fire safety. How does fire safety impact the layout and design of this development?
So regarding the height, so providing more than 2 staircase was one of the issues. But again, the proposal was consulted with London Fire Brigade and also HSE. So they have reviewed everything and they were considered that the proposal is acceptable in this term. So we accepted their response and their review.
Anybody else? No. Now I would like to invite the objectors to come and speak, please. Okay, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, and just a reminder that you've been given 5 minutes between you and you'll be told 30 seconds.
Yes, and if Mr. Jones can give me a nod when he's pushing the button, that'd be great. My name is Russell Harris. I'm a KC. I'm a planning KC, and I'm president of the OCPS. To my right is Mr. Simon Morgan, who's going to speak on behalf of the church. Tell me when to go, Mr. Jones. Thank you. St. Nicholas's Church, that you've heard a lot of, has presided over Old Chiswick, original Chiswick as was, for hundreds of years. It commands what is one of the oldest conservation areas in the UK and does so by way of its scale, its form, its singularity, and its historic absence of challenge to its dominance. HE, Historic England, call the church the serene yet dominant focus of the entire conservation area. They describe it as being the most important building in one of the most important conservation areas in the UK, and so it is. It's unsurprising, therefore, that Historic England say that this proposal causes a high level of harm to the conservation area and its buildings. See 5.9 of the officer's report. It's further important that the harm comes from the additional 10 metres that you were just told about. It is that additional 10 metres that robs the church of its primacy. You all saw the image. We have a blown up version for you to see as well. And it's on that basis that they say that there is a strong objection against the proposal, and we agree. The second thing to notice is that the view that you were shown from the other side of the river is also one of the most important cross-Thames views, and is a protected vista or view. That is shown in the adopted Richmond plan. It's protected by policy I5, and it's been retained in the new emerging plan and the new view protection SPG. But you didn't hear a word about that. That wasn't mentioned. All that we were told was that there was no objection from Richmond. Wrong. There is an objection from Richmond. It's a reasoned objection. It's a firm objection. It took me 2 minutes to find it on the internet. I've checked all of the cross-references and spoken to the officers. They object on the basis that the new proposal overwhelms the historic buildings in their protected view at this side of the river. They explain that the proposal is too large and that when you look at the historic buildings, they are all overwhelmed by the new height that's been granted to the new permission or is about to be, unless you listen to us. The absence of the explanation of the protected view is inexplicable. The absence of the reference to the Richmond objection is also literally inexplicable. It takes away, I would say, the credibility and the judgment of those suggesting that there ought to be a recommendation to grant in the circumstances of this case. It simply hasn't been grappled with, and you as elected members can't grapple with it either. Next point I want to make is a point that was made about paragraph 125E of the NPPF. It does say that there ought to be substantial harm in order for you to refuse, but it then goes on to say in the PPG, but bear in mind that does not mean substantial heritage harm. Heritage harm is to be dealt with separately. And so the paragraph relied upon by the officer is the wrong paragraph, and the PPG says so. Finally, I want to deal with the main benefit, because the main benefit that's relied on here are the 132 units. But that can't be right as a matter of law, because this is a case where officers agree that if this is turned away, you get 102 units as a result of the fallback consent, which has recently been said to be entirely appropriate to be developed by the inspectorate. So what we're looking at here is 20 plus 28 extra units over what officers agree will come anyway, 28 units with all of this harm. We don't think that equation comes close to resulting in a grant of permission. We please ask you to follow this.
You now have 30 seconds left.
Then I finish.
So thousands of people a week enjoy views over the church from the Mall across the river and up Church Street. These views are a public amenity free to all. The proposal is for an overdominant mass which will create a sense of enclosure and be oppressive. It'll destroy historic views which have existed for generations. From dusk onwards, the top floors will be a brightly lit halo soaring above the church. The proposal isn't supported by a conservation officer, Historic England, or the GLA. All of them believe it will harm the setting.
Please conclude. The time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from members? Okay, Councillor Tom Bruce.
Yeah, so you talked about the views and the vista and how it would impact on the church, and I mean we can see that from the picture, and it was highlighted by the officer there. You did talk about the homes at the end, and saying that the difference between the consented scheme and the proposed scheme, I don't know, is 30 or 25, 30. I would be interested in your views on the quality, though, in the difference between the two schemes. So it's very clear that the officers' views and the report's views is that the current consented scheme will be incredibly poor quality. There's no additional amenity there. That's really poor. We're not going to get any sill contributions. The access and egress, all of those aspects are not going to be uplifted. It will be what's there now, which is a poor quality and, quite frankly, horrible looking building. And what's proposed is far superior, notwithstanding the view that's there, or the proposed view that we can see. And I can see that, and I accept what you're saying. I just wonder about the rest of those issues that are incredibly important to new residents that are going to come in. Either way, I think we can all agree we're probably going to get some new residents to Chiswick, whether we refuse this and it's the current consented scheme or the new scheme. But what kind of quality of life do we want those residents living in? That's my question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Can I agree with Mr. Jones that the sill contribution difference is simply not a material consideration? And if you were to make the decision, even partially based on that, that would be unlawful. I've no doubt that Mr. Jones has told you precisely the right answer there. Then we've got to look at the scheme. And the scheme is judged in this case against the fallback. The officers have made that really, really clear. It's not judged against the existing occupation. So taking the officers on their own merits and taking the case that they put forward, they, on the board, and for the first time, I'd not seen those slides before, say that there are 7 or 8 things wrong with the extant scheme which has been implemented and which they accept will be built out. Now, in this country, we've got, this country, England and Wales, we've got a system whereby disagreements between parties are capable of being resolved through the appellate system. In this case, a hearing which was considering the sorts of points that officers are now making in front of an inspector. And the inspector granted permission, and he rejected every single one of the points that's now being relied upon as saying there would be unacceptable living conditions in the fallback position. The inspector looked very carefully at the policies, at the London plan, and at the guidance on housing standards that sits behind the plan, and found in every instance that the council's case in relation to those was not proven. Then, hence, the inspector granted the permission and said that 104 units and the impact on heritage that went with that was a perfectly appropriate balance. What we've now got is 10 meters further, 2 stories in effect, creating for the first time in hundreds of years something that clearly competes with the important church and the protected vista, which is in the statutory development plan of a neighbour who have objected, which has not been dealt with at all by your officers. So the premise of the question is that people who live in these new buildings on the fallback will be so poor that you should take that into account. Again, I would say an inspector has recently ruled against you on that. And to rely on that here to get this harm would also be unlawful. So thank you for the question, but the whole purpose of having an inspectorate is sometimes to say to local authorities that they are wrong. And that's already happened once in this case. Is there anything you want to add?
Nothing other than, sorry, I shouldn't say any more.
Sure.
Councillor John Traitor.
Yeah, similar theme to Councillor Bruce. And we accept your point about the old scheme. But the old scheme, despite coming through on appeal, didn't have a lot of merits to it. We as a council and as a committee find ourselves somewhere between rock and a hard place here, because if this is rejected, it's very likely that the fallback scheme will be built, which is suboptimal. No matter how you want to dress it up, sir, it's suboptimal. And it also provides far less units of a lower standard. Now, no one's suggesting that the old or the substantive scheme is of a poor standard. It's just not a very good standard, where these are a better quality and there are far more of them. So as I said, we find ourselves between a rock and a hard place. If we reject this, we get probably a suboptimal. If we accept it, we get something which is better, probably not as good as we would want and you would want, but certainly better than we get if we object to it. So I think you'd have to accept we are between a rock and a hard place.
Well, no, I don't accept that at all. First of all, it's not far more units. It's 28 units, all of which will be located in that part which causes the maximum harm. The 28 units are, if you like, the price of this substantial harm and the breach of the Richmond local plan policy, which hasn't even ever been taken into account. So I don't agree with that. I repeat what I said earlier. In this world, we've got the inspectorate, and the PPG and the MPPF make clear that unless there's very good reason, you should pay attention to and not traverse recent decisions by the inspectorate. If you do, there are certain consequences. But of course, you might disagree with it. We might disagree with it, but it is the system speaking and saying that those 104 units would make a very substantial contribution to need and would not cause unacceptable heritage harm in the way that Historic England is saying here. So if you're asking me where I would put the balance, I would personally say that the 104 scheme was much better because it didn't cause the significant harm you see in front of me. But really what I think is not as important as what the inspector has said, having listened to exactly the points that were made on behalf of officers and rejected.
Thank you. Just a point of clarity, because there's two numbers for the old scheme. One's 104, and in the paper, one of the papers, it's 82. Can you just clarify which one it is?
The 82 is related to the prior approval previously was.
Was 82?
80, I think was 82. What's happening, we need to distinguish with a few of the proposal and the application we had. The fallback position scheme has 104 new homes. At the time, it was compared with the prior approval, which was, I think it was 2022, and it now, the 3 years lapsed from that time. So that prior approval had different number of homes. I think it was 82 at the time. With the prior approval, you know that the external changes cannot be allowed. So it was just some internal changes and changing the offices to new homes at the time with the prior approval. It is why it has a different kind of number. But that one, which is the prior approval, it's now the 3 years is finished. So we can not refer to that. It is the fallback position, which is now at the commencing stage.
104.
Yeah. 104.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
And now can I invite the applicants to come up, please? And if you'd like to introduce yourselves, please.
Sorry, I just put this. Apologies. Good evening, everyone. My name is Diraj Dabasya, and I'm joined this evening by our planning consultant, Ben Kelway, the project architect, Christian Mail, including some other members of the team, so that members of the committee can ask us any particular questions you have on the application. As a very brief introduction, I head up the development team for the applicant. I'm also a construction director for the applicant's in-house contracting group. Essentially, we are a small family-owned SME organisation focused on delivering high-quality mixed-use development within North and West London. This particular application has been the culmination of over 2 years' worth of collaboration with officers at Hounslow. And I'm sure the very detailed committee report by officers this evening will highlight just how meticulous the entire process has been, and ultimately realising this scheme in front of committee here this evening, the significant benefits that it offers, including as well as providing a building of exceptional architectural and residential design quality. I'd also like to add for the members of the committee is that this scheme is actually ready to be delivered. It's funded, it has an in-house contracting group, all of the public benefits that the application brings will be secured. I'm now going to hand over to Ben Kelway, our planning consultant.
Thank you, Diraj. As mentioned, I'm Ben Kelway from Lichfield's Planning Consultants. As we've heard, the site in question is the unsightly 1980s office building next to the roundabout and the flyover. It's been empty for almost a decade, and it's a real blight in this area. As has been explained by officers and as has just been discussed with the objectors, the site has this alternative fallback permission for a residential development, which involves conversion and extension of the existing building. The fallback permission offers very few of the benefits of the current application. The differentiating factor is not just about 28 or 30 residential units. The fallback option won't deliver the landscape improvements, the enhancement of the public realm, critically the improvements to the subways beneath the roundabout. It's an inferior design solution, as officers have accepted. And it offers inferior homes, perhaps not unacceptable homes. It offers less family units, and it offers no affordable housing. To be clear, we don't want to build the fallback option. We intend to deliver the proposals before you this evening, but it's certainly a material consideration. Our aim here from day one has been to replace the derelict office block with an excellent residential-led scheme, which benefits this area of Chiswick and really stands the test of time. Of course, the proposal is taller than the existing building and the existing permission, and we've heard from the objectors tonight. We know that development in an area and the associated changes it brings can sometimes be difficult, but we really want to stress we've worked incredibly hard with officers to find the right balance between a scheme which respects the area while remaining viable and deliverable and providing meaningful local benefits. Officers have thoroughly examined the height and appearance of the building, its heritage and townscape effects, as have the GLA. The scheme, as Diraj has mentioned, is the culmination of 2 years of work. There's consensus between the applicant and officers and the GLA. The development causes some less than substantial harm to the setting of local heritage assets. This isn't uncommon for major developments in London. And importantly, there's also agreement with your officers and with the GLA that this is the right scale of development for this very prominent site at this key junction, and the heritage harm is firmly outweighed by the development's benefits. And these local benefits really are significant. The scheme will deliver 132 new homes. We're all well versed in London's housing crisis. As Diraj has mentioned, the scheme is funded, it's ready to go. Housing deliveries are falling dramatically. This scheme is certainly deliverable in the not too distant future. It will contribute meaningfully to housing targets. There's a commitment here from the applicant to maximise the quantum of affordable housing on site. All but one of the social rented units we're proposing are family-sized 3 and 4 bedroom homes. We've worked hard to ensure the development provides an excellent place to live. Unlike the fallback option, the residential quality and amenities here for residents are really exemplary. The development will secure investment in Chiswick. It will strengthen the local economy. It will create jobs. And turning to design, we've got award-winning architects behind the scheme. It's a well-mannered building, which has been through a significant process of iterative design development, strongly informed by your officers and the GLA's officers. And finally, there's a significant package of planning obligations and SIL payments, as outlined in the report, which will deliver several £1 million of investment in the local
infrastructure. You now have
infrastructure.
30 seconds left to wind up, please.
So importantly, at a time when the housing market is really in a state of paralysis, the project is funded, the applicant has a track record of building all of their schemes out at a very high quality. There's a commitment here to delivery in the coming months and to deliver a scheme which is significantly superior to the fallback option, not just in terms of housing numbers, but a wide array of other benefits. So for all of these reasons, we respectfully encourage you to support the officer's clear
Thank you.
recommendation.
Your time is up now.
Happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I invite members for any questions.
Actually, a couple. You'd be aware that normally for affordable housing, we're looking at a target around about 25% or better.
Yes.
This is not close. Obviously, you're going to give us a tale of woe of why it's not close on affordability basis. Is there anything you can do to get more affordable units? Because that's what we need in this borough. We don't need more expensive apartments. We need more affordable family accommodation. So what can you do to get more out of us, to persuade us that this is a good thing to do?
Well, where we started on the project was with a larger scale development and 35% affordable housing, and with officers through the design-led iterative process, the scale has been reduced, and understandably the affordable housing has been reduced, and for good reason. We think this is a better design scheme than where we started off, in a more contextually appropriate scheme, but inevitably the affordable housing has been reduced. The affordable level we're proposing has been assessed and interrogated rigorously by your officers, by your viability consultants, by the GLA and their in-house viability team. We would like to deliver more, but it would just simply render the scheme unviable. But we do have a safety net. We heard earlier about the late stage viability review and the early stage viability review. So if the market improves, if we're able to generate more of a margin here, which hopefully will be the case, then the council will benefit through an uplift in affordable homes.
Okay, second question if I might, Chair. Yeah. Big fan of your number of bike parking spaces. Love that.
Good.
Not so happy about the 67 car parking spaces. How wedded are you to that? If we put a condition on saying next to none, showstopper for you?
Well, I think we've been back and forth on the parking with officers and with the GLA and TfL.
Well, no, forget officers. Convince us. Why
Well,
67?
We think we've struck the right balance. It's not the most accessible of sites.
It's not acceptable at all.
It's accessible. Of
No,
sites,
no,
so-
no, no. It's not acceptable. It is an accessible site. I live not far from it. You can walk to Chiswick Chiswick train station. You can walk to Chiswick High Road.
Yes.
You can walk to Turnham Green Station, all within 15 minutes. Notwithstanding what the IPTL of B says, it is accessible, and all the objectors behind you walk regularly down Devonshire Road to Chiswick High Road. So a little bit of exercise won't do your tenants any harm. So why 67?
We think we've got the right balance between the need for parking spaces. A high number of those parking spaces, I think it's 15 spaces, are accessible bays, and then another 14 are
Well, you've got
EV
13
charging
and
bays.
2, 15.
It's a significant reduction compared to what's there at the moment, and a significant reduction again compared to the fallback scheme. So this is another example of how the scheme improves upon the fallback option. I could bring my client here to discuss whether there might be scope to reduce the parking further, but I suspect it may well be challenging.
Well, I might ask a quick question to our officers. If we were to think about, even if we're thinking of being mindful of approving this, could we approve it with a condition to reduce the parking spaces, please?
Sorry.
Yes, Councillor.
We can. Thank you. You may hear from us later on that.
So are you basically saying you've approved it by just saying that, sir? Well, yes, I think you are.
Sorry, can you not call from the floor, please?
I'd like to say something, though.
Members of the public can't speak, I'm afraid.
But you're not listening to the public. You've had hundreds of objections, and you're not listening to us. You allowed 5 minutes to be objected. We had the lady over there speaking.
No, I need you to sit down, please.
Just for clarity, I said if we were minded, it could be a condition. I didn't say we were minded.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a comment, actually, if you wouldn't mind, responding to our colleague. It is my ward. Yeah, I know, but it's my ward. There's a factory on site, it's a brewery. It's a large industrial brew. And I think we make that sort of decision about parking when we've done a bit more homework.
Okay, Councillor Max Mosley.
Yeah, just a very quick one. We were talking earlier about the low number of affordable homes and the potential for more affordable homes should market sentiment improve. Just be curious about your reflections on the probability of that improvement in market sentiment.
I suspect, Diraj, you may be better placed than me to.
Yeah, I was going to say, in respect of the actual viability mechanism, there is an early stage review mechanism and a late stage review mechanism. So effectively that provides essentially, well, the early stage mechanism is really there to be able to provide the opportunity to capture affordable housing. So this scheme isn't just subject to a late stage viability mechanism where traditionally council would receive a financial contribution at the end of the project. We have got an early stage viability process. So the scheme will be tested again with the council's viability consultant. Any improvement in market sentiment will obviously result in additional affordable housing being delivered on site.
Thank you. Any more questions? Tom Bruce?
Yeah, I talking earlier to the objection about the wider public benefits and the things that come with this. I know we were talking a little bit about poor quality homes and better quality homes about that, but just because you only had 5 minutes, I'm interested in, from your perspective, what the wider public benefits. We heard from the officers, but from yourselves, what is it the residents, what is it that future residents and current residents are going to get because of this development? What do you say they're going to get?
So in terms of current residents and the improvements to the site and the context, as you'll all, I'm sure, be aware, it's a really poor quality derelict building, a really poor area of public realm, quite a threatening series of underpasses underneath the roundabout. There's an opportunity here to really significantly improve that public realm, to introduce planting, improved landscaping, better surveillance, remove the antisocial behaviour from this immediate area, and to contribute towards the improvement, working with TfL, of those underpasses and the environment surrounding the Hogarth roundabout. And those discussions with TfL are advancing. We've been having those conversations. There are financial commitments here to improving the public realm, as well as commitments within the site boundary as well to improving the public realm. So that's a significant local benefit. We haven't really heard a huge amount about the commercial element of the scheme. There's a small commercial part of the scheme would create jobs. It'll provide local retail provision, potentially, perhaps a cafe on the ground floor of the scheme, which there isn't in the immediate area at the moment. So there's that opportunity for Class E floor space on the ground floor of the scheme, which again officers have strongly supported. And based on typical employment densities, it's likely to generate 15 or 20 jobs, perhaps. There's obviously also employment generation through the construction process, local spending of residents, so induced indirect local spending, huge amount of investment coming to this area of Chiswick, all in place of a building that's been vacant for 9 years and hasn't contributed anything in terms of any of those local benefits or the character of the area. So really, really significant array of benefits. Christian, I think you...
Can I just add something on the layout of the scheme and the residential design versus the two? The existing building, and whilst it's incumbent on everybody to obviously try and use existing resources in existing buildings where we can. That building wasn't designed to be residential, and it is, if you look at the plans that the existing building generates, they may be generating 104 homes. There's been stated that they're not, there's much more one beds in that mix. There's also the corridor, the internal aspect of some of those units that are all facing into that courtyard. The chance to reconsider the arrangement on the site allows you not only to look at the mass to be distributed, obviously we've had a lot of discussion on the massing, but it also allows the open space to be reconsidered, as well as the public realm and the nature of the garden. The garden will get more light than that courtyard gets. It'll be more suitably landscaped. It'll also contain the play space that is required to support the new family homes that are in there. So all around, those are the areas that will make it a more desirable residential accommodation. We've also been making going to great pains to look at how we can integrate more double aspect units. That is the reason you have the articulated bay facade along Burlington Lane to give double aspect to those units, which isn't in the extant scheme.
So another question on design here. I mean, I think from the emails that have been written and some of the comment from the objectors already, we're talking about views and the massing and the size of the current building. And I just kind of had your views, not just on what you think it will be, it'll be okay, but more about the work has gone into assessing as an applicant, what work has gone into looking at those views and balancing various things out. Clearly it will be more visible than the current building. That's a given. I have been a member of Kew Gardens. I'm not at the moment. I have, visit Chiswick House and Gardens very regularly. Those views will change. I think that's, very clear. But I'd be interested from a design perspective how you've looked at that and thought about mitigating that as much as possible, if at all, even.
I can certainly respond to that in terms of the design of the building. I think in terms of the impact, Felix can talk about the views and the assessment of the views, if that's the question. But in terms of the design, there wasn't a lot of presentation of the alternatives that were considered in the evolution of the approach to the site, and that is worth study and is worth consideration, because it was, the site obviously is a challenging site. We have searched for the right typology, the right way to try and approach the organisation of the buildings and the massing on the site. There's been, and it's clear, of course, the elevation to Burlington Lane is visible from the churchyard, and the existing building is. The new building will be. The extent permission is visible from there. The views along the Mall and the views, and it's better for you to really talk about the assessment, are obviously not as impacted as the more distant views of that from across the river on the Thames Path. That Thames Path is, with all due respect to the status of, has been acknowledged, of the view, they are views through gaps in the trees, and they are views that need to be sought from that path, the experience of that path. I know this is my opinion. There is a break in the trees, and that's where the photographs and the views are taken from. It's about 10 meters long, and as referred to, clearly that is a view where Old Chiswick is visible, and it's a view where it's been painted. It's a view, so that is a view. What we have looked at in the massing of the building is a way of articulating that. We do believe the height is justifiable along and the vistas that you get along the Great West Road, and the termination, the massing of that building. When you compare to the extant permission, I think it is a better composition of a vertical element that does look at addressing a long view. That does then interlock over a grounded piece that is the majority of the building, and that cuts a line at the roof line along the main body of the church. It's the 2 stories that Russell has referred to. But then above that, the articulation of those 2 stories is a folded piece of the same element of the building that forms that strong gable composition to the vista view down the Great West Road, marking the junction of the roads. This is, urban design principles that are pretty clear. I don't think they're controversial. The expression of that top story is then as lightweight as possible, and it's been referred to as glazed, and by the representative of the church as something that would be light filled at night. You've got to realise that's glass faced. It's not all windows. It's therefore solid behind. It can't be all glass. It won't meet the building regulations. And so the choice of that material is to try to lighten the top 2 stories, where you cast that line that is where the church is in front of from those views across the Thames path, and indeed of the not in fact of the church, not in fact of the grave of the cemetery. So that is the logic and the explanation of that composition. We tried other orientations where instinctively it was maybe you should open up the organisation of that composition of buildings and the garden to Burlington Lane, and that was one of the earlier schemes, but it required more height at that intersection of the road that would be more harmful to then the view from Chiswick House. So and the idea also of taking that block when you rotated it round to face onto Burlington Lane and edge of the street, it then follows a mansion block typology, which is not, again, an inappropriate building typology that faces on the street, but also orientates the main axis of the building to the north-south axis, which means you're getting east-west light into east-west facing apartments. With your undulating facade, you're getting double aspect apartments. So that articulation, we believe, is considered. It's not accidental. It is conscious of what it's doing, and it's attempting to address the complexity of the issues that exist on that site to achieve a better set of residential apartments. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I mean, in terms of assessment, I mean, largely you answered in terms of design, but we've always been quite, clear as an applicant where the building is visible and where it is visible from Chiswick House, and we've provided those views, and also where it's visible from across the river, such as kind of silhouetting the church. So we've always been quite clear in kind of providing that evidence for a kind of proper decision to be made. We never tried to kind of, I don't know, kind of hide, kind of divert views away from the building. It's always been quite clear, and it's also good to bear in mind that all the views that we provided are the kind of worst case scenario. That is where the building is visible. Those glimpses from Chiswick House is where it's visible, but there's lots of other areas from within that parkland where it's not visible. And there's lots of areas within Old Chiswick Conservation Area where the building is not visible, such as mostly down the Mall itself. So these are the views which are very much the worst case scenario. And they're very important views, which is why we've included them. But it's also important to remember that there's many other areas from within the surroundings where the building is visible or not visible, and not in relation to lots of the heritage assets. So it's just important to bear that in mind, I think.
I would add, if I may, the views and the photographs are taken, a lot of the views that are used, and certainly the ones in the era of wintertime, they are the worst case. There's no attempt to try and, say this impact isn't there. And obviously trees grow as well. And no, I know it's, hey, I've seen this, so I know I'm going to get, okay.
Okay, Councillor Dan Bowen.
I think just a really quick answer on this one, but was touched on slightly in the officer's report, but climate considerations is something that this council takes very seriously. So could you perhaps because it's shaping up to be a long night, in under a minute, could you just give us the headlines, not the details, the difference in the sustainability credentials between this application and the fallback position, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, this application is achieving, it's around about 70% reduction in carbon on site. The fallback option is substantially less than that. The nature of the scheme, the sustainability strategy includes a significant amount of PV at roof level, air source heat pumps communally. Each of the units will also independently have a water source heat pump, I believe. So it's achieving a significant reduction in carbon. And then obviously the offset payment is captured in the Section 106. So there's a contribution of around about £120,000 to match that offset amount and that reduction below the zero carbon. The fallback option in terms of sustainability, I don't have the figure to hand in terms of the carbon reduction, but it's significantly less. Obviously, there's embodied carbon issues in terms of retaining existing buildings, and we've done a full assessment of embodied carbon, the structural concerns associated with the existing buildings. So we wouldn't be able to uplift the scale and the quantum to the number of units that we need to deliver the benefits, the affordable housing, the family homes, if we were to retain the existing building. And in any event, as we've heard, the units would be quite deficient themselves. So there's a lot of improvements in terms of daylight and sunlight, natural light and outlook as well in comparison with the previous scheme. Not quite a minute, but hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you. No more questions? Okay. So members will now debate the application. Please allow the debate to conclude before moving to accept or refuse the recommendation. Members may move changes to recommendations such as additional or amendment conditions, such as changes must be moved, second and voted, or on before the final decision is made on the vote. The planning officer will confirm any additional conditions or amendments to be published recommendations prior to the final vote.
Chair, apologies for this. Would I be able to make a point of clarification following the speakers, if that's okay? Because one of the speakers mentioned an objection from, the London Borough of Richmond. They're correct, sorry. So the report says there's no objection from the London Borough of Richmond. There is actually an objection. We'll obviously check what happened there, why it didn't make its way through to the application file, but this is material to your decision making. So if it's okay, I'm going to read this out for you now, if you'll permit me the time, excuse me. Essentially, as Mr. Harris says, Richmond Council are objecting to the application on this basis. It says, in regards to design, it is noted that Richmond has published a draft SPD on local views. Local view I2.1 from the Lego Mutton, which is the nature reserve, is described as a scenic wide-angle view from River Thames Pathway at Bend in the River, across Chiswick on the opposite riverbank, encompassing the Chiswick Mole, Church of St. Nicholas, the Griffin Brewery and Fuller's Brewery. The TVIA, sorry, that's the Townscape Visual and Impact Assessment, illustrates the proposed development from a number of views. View 10C illustrates the view from Richmond Bank towards the proposed site. The AVR, so those are the accurate visual representations, shows the proposed development overwhelming the existing riverside buildings. In paragraph 6.13 of the Townscape Heritage and Visual Impact Assessment, it says, views from the River Thames, there would be a range of minor neutral to a localized moderate adverse visual effect. The latter seen from a limited stretch of the Thames Path from the Severn Bank opposite the old Chiswick Conservation Area, where the proposals would be seen directly from the listed Church of St. Nicholas. The proposal would have prominence on the skyline, though would appear similar to the general height of surrounding mature trees and taller buildings around the brewery site. In terms of the riverscape setting, the proposed development would have a negative impact when viewed from the river and the Richmond Bank. From the above analysis, from the Townscape Heritage and Visual Impact Assessment, there would have no impact on conservation areas or listed buildings in Richmond. It would not impact on the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew World Heritage Site. Sorry if that's not making sense, just to clarify. So we're back to talking about the view on the board, which I believe is a view. It was also on your side. It's the same view. It's the one that has the church in the foreground. So they're essentially objecting to the scheme on the basis of this view in particular, and they have got a draft SPD which I've seen, which talks about this view and the importance of it. I would just go on to suggest I think this broadly feeds into the discussions that have already been had in terms of the recommendation. We're not hiding away from this view; it's clearly represented in the slides, and again, they've brought the visual representation as well. The heritage implications are here, hopefully for all to see, and obviously it's going to feed into the complex balancing considerations you've got to give to the application. So again, if there's any questions at that point, please do say. But otherwise, apologies, Chair, to just come in on that point.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, may I say, because the point has been taken and I've got no ability to respond unless you let me, that I'm sure Mr. Rees would, through the chair.
Yeah.
I'm just asking that the point of a fact ought to be made clear that the draft SPD on local views contained extant views that are in the development plan already and new views. This is an extant view, so is in the development plan that is adopted and is therefore protected. It's also shown on the views map as a protected view or vista in the adopted plan.
We take that on board.
Okay, we're now open to debate. Councillor Dunbar.
Yeah, I just want to raise something about we heard a lot of discussion about the inspector's decision, and I just want to make sure that we don't slightly get diverted, that doesn't become a red herring, because I just think it's important to just state the inspector wasn't comparing the fallback position with this application. The inspector was deciding, is this kind of legal, is it okay? And I think that's not the decision that we're looking at. We're looking at, or one of the things we're looking at is how much better is this than the fallback position. That's not something that the inspector ever considered. So I just wanted to raise that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the point that Councillor Barring just made. And it's really looking for clarification from our legal advisor. Obviously, one of the objectors was well versed in the law surrounding this, is indicating, and I must admit, I got a little bit lost in where he was going. That's probably my fault, not his. That the extant one was agreed by the planning inspector. Therefore, to somehow approve this or go against this would be going against the planning inspector. I mean, I don't think that's what he said, but could you just steer us around that bit of law, please, sir?
Basically, the fallback position that's been mentioned numerous times this evening is obviously an important material consideration. But if you were not to approve this application, there's a chance that the fallback application may be pursued. That is for the owner of the land to decide. The important point to realise is the mere fact that the fallback position arose as a result of the decision of a planning inspector doesn't affect the weight you attach to that decision, because obviously, put it this way, effectively, planning inspectors try to be, shall we say, as consistent as possible. And their role is to bring in a lot of consistency in planning decisions that are appealed to them. So in those circumstances, I do not think that you need to go into all of the details considered by the inspector at the planning appeal. You just have to realise that the outcome of that planning appeal is the material consideration that we have to take in account. And we then also have to consider this fresh application we now have and compare it with the fallback position, whether it is indeed an improvement on the fallback position or in fact could be improved far more, because you can't normally say merely because there's a fallback position, we must accept whatever alternatives put forward. You want to make sure that what's put forward as an alternative is far better in all respects.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a comment. That's very, very helpful. I think in us understanding exactly where we are on this. I mean, very clearly there is some harm to certain aspects that we've heard about. I won't go over again. It's 20 to 9. I won't go over those again. I think we accept that. You know, you can see the views over there on the slide. We're on the board over there, and we've talked about some of those other aspects. Affordable housing being a bit of an issue as well, I think, and that's come up a few times. But for us here, it's about weighing up those pros and cons. It's what is the benefit here against what is the harm and what's the negative. I mean, that's planning all over, really, isn't it? And that's what we have to decide. I mean, my view is that there is going to be some harm. It's going to have an impact on certain views, and it's going to have an impact on the townscape and those kind of things. But I think the quality of homes that will be delivered and the quality of design that is there that wouldn't otherwise be there with the fallback position, the fact that there's some jobs, I mean, not a huge number of jobs, but jobs, the fact that there is some affordable homes, again, not a huge number of affordable homes, but some at the moment, and the opportunity to either increase or get some cash, or even both at a later stage to put into other affordable homes. I think for me at this point, I'm hearing those things, and with the support, with the help of the legal advice that's just been given, shows that actually looking at that against the fallback position means that this is something we, perhaps reluctantly for some of us, and perhaps with some reservation, but can support this in delivering something of high value to new residents that will be coming in, and to residents that are there at the moment, with all the economic factors behind it, in terms of construction, in terms of spend, all of those kind of things. So I think that's, you know, looking at that balance, and that's where I would be sitting at the moment.
So I need you to sit down, please. You can't speak from the no. I need you to sit down, please.
Madam, this is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. I'm afraid we can't have contributions from the floor, and if you keep interrupting, I'm afraid we will have to get security.
Can you please sit down, please, because the security will come and remove you. Thank you. Please, can you sit down, please? Okay, we're going to suspend the meeting until the lady has left the room. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your patience, and we're going back to Councillor John Jodo, please.
Yeah, without prejudicing what anyone else may propose later, I'd like, if this does go through, I'd like to put a condition on this, please. And the condition is that the amount of parking is substantially reduced. Currently, it's 67 places with 13 blue badge internally and 2 external blue badges for the commercial use. I'd like to see that reduced. And this is not because we don't. It's because actually we want to reduce the amount of cars, we want to reduce the amount of traffic. As our overall aim as a council, normally we would give very limited parking space, and all the parking space would be EV. Therefore, I'd like to propose a condition is that the amount of blue badge remains as it is, 2 plus 13, 15, and the amount of normal parking space be reduced to 20, and half of that should be EV. So 10 EV and 10 standard parking spots, making a total of 35 parking spots, of which 15 will be blue badge. That would be a proposal, if it's approved, a condition I'd like to put on.
Thank you. Councillor Dunbar.
I'd just perhaps, Councillor, I'd like to consider that if we do reduce the amount of parking, we might like to see if we can increase the possibility of car club parking within his condition, but I'll leave that with him.
You agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I'd be quite happy to maybe to put, so it would be 2 plus 13. Can we do that, Matthew?
I'm half thinking about sort of a car club day would be something that we need to consider. Sorry, I'm speaking to both of you now. I mean, whether it's plausible. So could we say something along the lines of investigate the possibility for the
Please
car
do.
club? And you've been very prescriptive about the car parking spaces. So yeah, that's
So I'll leave it with 13 for residents and 2 for visitors blue badge, 20 standard parking spaces, half of which should be EV, would be my
yeah. Thank you. So generally, you'd delegate the authority to officers to do the exact wording in the condition, but it's now see Bill writing down on the minutes the precise wording. So yeah, that's what it will be.
I need a seconder for that as well, please. Arena Sharp. Thank you. And then John Schmidt. And John Todd.
I find this quite breathtaking. We know a parking supremo doesn't have a mandate within the cabinet or elsewhere. This is a residential area. It's an industrial premises. There are lots of men work there, working very difficult shifts. I'm not against the approach, Councillor. I'd like to have more research to justify the extent that you're doing. It's a tourist area too that we're trying to encourage people down there. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we're going to move to the vote then. But I need a mover, please. And a seconder. Thank you. All votes. Okay. Yes. So we're voting for approval of what John just said for the parking. Okay. For the condition for what John just put. Okay, so we're going to take the first vote for the amendment. Okay, for? Against? Sustained?
Okay, for the record, the amendment proposed by Councillor John Sprout-Turp has been approved by a vote of 13 for, 1 against, no abstentions.
And now we're voting for the application. Okay, so for.
Formally, we need a move rather than a second.
And for. And against. And sustained.
The application, including the amendment of reducing parking proposed by Councillor Stroud-Turp, has been approved by a majority vote of 13 in favour, 1 against, no abstentions.
Okay, and now we're moving on to agenda number 5, the Gunnersbury Park. I would like the officer to present your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Councillor. This is the application for Gunnersbury Park. It is a temporary application for 19 days. The 19 days, including the setup days and the clearance day, it would be starting from the 1st of September to the 19th of September. And the music event itself would be take place on the 12th, 13th, and 14th of September. This is the location plan, and you can see that the green area is actually the arena area. It is about 7.6 hectares big in size, and the park itself is over 70 hectares. Also in the location plan, you can see that the red line boundary is bigger. It is around 20 hectares. That is because they need to link up the arena area to all the accesses. This is the arena plan. There would be some temporary structures over here, including the stages and also the kiosks for food and drinks, and also there are the production area. This is an application for the temporary events for 19 days, according to the GPDO, which is the General Permitted Development Order. Actually, the owner has the right to change the use of the site to another use for 28 days per year. It is not the maximum number of days that can be allowed to change the use, just that outside of the 28 days, they need to have the planning application. They need to have the planning permission. And that is the reason why we are discussing the planning application here today. these are the pictures that I have taken on site today. It could be a reference for all the councillors, because we have received 3 applications from the applicant this year to change the use for music events, and one of the events is actually take place this week. And so this is the condition of the site that you can take that for reference. All the pictures over here is showing the northern parts of the site. There are some fences, but then when there is no event on, today is not the event day, so the fences are actually open for access. That's the situation today. And then for this, for the southern parts of the site, surrounding the arena, the fences are closed today. And then for the area which is on this western side of the park, there is the open access for the public today. So these are the references that the councillors could take into consideration today. The park itself is the metropolitan open land. So there is an assessment from us whether it is acceptable to have the change of use. And we need to confirm that there would be more harm. We need to confirm that the harm would be outweighed by the benefits. And the identified benefits, including jobs, promoting cultural uses in the borough. And also, we understand that some the net profits of the events would be used to maintain and also to manage the park. These are the identified benefits. And for the harm, we understand that there would be a temporary loss of the openness due to all the temporary structures and also the fencing. And we also understand that there would be temporary harm on the grassland. And that's why we need to do the assessment. And our assessment is that it is a very special circumstances, which we believe that the harm is being outweighed by the benefits. And that's why we are having the recommendation today. But then we recommend the approval for this application. At the same time, we have multiple conditions. For example, we have the conditions related to ecology. This is the tree protection plan. And also we have the condition for the applicants to reinstate the site after the event so that the existing condition of the park would not be impacted. And at the same time, another local concern is the noise. So there will be 8 monitoring points surrounding the park during the events. And the noise level, the maximum noise level that that would be allowed would be 73 dB on an average in 5 minutes. The applicant has an active license, and the license is allowing them to have the maximum noise level 75 dB on an average of 15 minutes. So when compared, we believe that the 73 dB an average of 5 minutes is an improvement when compared with the license that they have. And at the same time, we have the management plan that is conditioned. There will be hotline, dedicated telephone line for all the residents to complain if they have any complaints related to noise and some other issues. And after the events, they also need to submit reports to us about noise. So we believe that there are conditions to manage the noise issues, and we are recommending the approval of this application.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Councillor Dunbar?
Yeah, just two. The first one is approximately what percentage of the park is going to be inaccessible for that 19 days? Doesn't have to be exact. And the second one, I just want to touch on something you said at the beginning, because a number of residents have written to me, and I'm sure all other members on this, is about this 28-day rule. So I just want to make sure I've understood you correctly. What I've understood you to say is they've got permitted developments to do up to 28 days. They don't need planning permission. But that doesn't mean they can't do more than 28 days. They just need to get planning permission if they go over the 28. Is that right?
For the first question, the Gunnersbury Park is about 70 hectares. And then the arena area is about 7.6 hectares. So it is about 10% of the park, which is being fenced off during the events. And also before and after, it should be for 19 days, there would be about 10% of the park being fenced off. But then the red line boundary is bigger. you see that there are some fencing today, but then they are open, but they are also parts of the red line boundary. We need to have the applicant need to have the fencing, and we need them to be included in the red line boundary because that is linked to all the accesses. So they should be within the red line boundary. If we are talking about the red line boundary, it would be 20 hectares, which is more than 1/4 of the park. But then when I was on site today, and then I also done site visit before, just like today, the fencing is there, but then at the same time, most of the fences are, I would not say most of the fences, but then they have some areas that people could use, and there are some, they are not totally fenced off. So I would say the accessibility for 90% of the park is still there today, as of today. But then if they're having events, just like maybe tomorrow or the day after, they may fence off slightly more area, but then it is within the red line boundary. And then for the second question, this is related to the permitted development rights. The permitted development rights allowed the applicants to change the use for 28 days, but then outside of 28 days, they need to have the planning permission. In the last few years, we have approved several temporary application for music events. In 2022, we have approved 2 music events. For 2023, we approved 1. In 2024, we approved another music event.
Thank you. So, but the point is, the 28 days is that's not the limit of the events. There's events you don't need permission for.
Yes, that is not the maximum of days.
Brilliant.
It's just that the rights they have.
Okay, Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, I want to ask about the conditions and really how we are monitoring and who's monitoring those conditions. I mean, you talked about the red line and the fence line and stuff, and you said that they're open. There was I'm not going to get into the details. There's a comment from behind, oh, no, they're not. How are we, like the noise, like the reinstatement of some of the ground, all of those things, how are we monitoring that? Who's monitoring that and making sure these things are happening on a day-to-day basis?
Regarding the noise, this is mostly related to our regulatory team. So they are responding to, first of all, they need to, they will talk to us and also talk to the regulatory team before the meeting. We have multiple meetings with the councils. We have meetings with Gunnersbury Park before, and then this application has been reviewed by our regulatory team. And then after the event, they also need to submit the report to our regulatory team, and then we will look into that. In the past few years, because we have received temporary applications from the applicants from starting from 2022. So there are some discussion after the event, some reviews, and then we have some new conditions. So our regulation of the teams in the council that is working with the Gunnersbury Park and to ensure there would be less issues when they are having the events on site.
Thank you, Councillor Gazalaba.
Thank you, Chair. I have one question regarding the safety. What safety and crowd control measures are planned?
The applicants have submitted the event management plan, and then the safety issues has been addressed in the event management plan. And it is in our condition that they should follow the event management plan during the 19 days.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Roswell.
Thank you, Chair. How are we monitoring sound levels?
We have 8 monitoring points surrounding the park, and then they will monitor the noise when the event is on. And also in the condition, it is not only related to the free music events. We are also talking about the sound checking periods. So these are the methods for us to monitor it. And also after that, they also need to submit the report to us. As mentioned, there are some revision after all the events in the previous years. And then, yeah, it is the way that we are doing the monitoring right now.
And just a follow up to that, if we see that noise pollution is getting too excessive, what are we going to do?
there is the dedicated telephone line that the residents can call. It is actually provided by the applicant, so they could call the hotline, or they can find the staff on site to complain about the noise. I believe it has happened before, and also our council is actually having some staff working for really long hours. So if there is some problem regarding noise, we could also respond to that. But then mostly, my understanding is that the residents would usually complain to the owner of the site and the organizer instead of directly complaining to us during the events. But then most of the complaints to us are usually after the events.
That's a John Turf.
Yeah, coming back on exactly that point, given that amongst a number, the noise is one of the major points raised by objectors, and notwithstanding what you've just said, would it not be wise to have enforcement officers there for the entire period? Because we know that even when we're working at our quickest, if a resident makes a noise complaint, then officers have to be deployed, they have to do a measurement, they have to contact. But if we were proactively managing the noise by having enforcement officers on site, is that a condition that we think we might be able to put on? Obviously, we'd ask the applicant to pay for that, but it would probably help and ease the worry of some of the residents.
Sorry, Kaz. I mean, the answer is, well, by condition, probably not. But in terms of the enforceability of the situation, we do have planning enforcement officers who don't necessarily have the legislative tools to stop an event from occurring through enforcement actions. But we do have a neighbourhood enforcement team, regulatory officers, noise officers who do visit events like this, and their legislation is the more effective to deal with this kind of thing. I guess I'm kind of passing the buck a little bit, but there will be, the council has at its disposal officers who can go down and check this and issue noise abatement notices and such. It's just not effective through planning legislation necessarily.
No, I understand, but if they were actually deployed at the cost of the applicant, that would make people feel that we were going to be much more responsive. I know it's not a planning consideration, but it could be something we could put in, which I think would ease the worries of some of the residents.
Yes, I believe they were at the last festival because they've been taking a keen interest in this as well. The noise team, and we could do an informative to say this is what will be done. About the payment, I'm not sure you'd have a mechanism to secure it through planning legislation again. So sorry for that. But notwithstanding that, as I say, you've got an excellent neighbourhood, pollution control team, I'll call them, who go down and monitor the events. I can get them to get in touch with everyone to say what they have been doing up to this point to monitor the situation. Again, apologies, it sounds like I'm passing the buck there, but they've got the more effective tools.
Not at all, and I'm sure the ward councils will be working closely with them as well.
Councillor Falcao.
Thank you, Chair. In the proposal, the applicant said it's a 3 days event. So I'm just wondering, what is the timing of the music? Like, what time they're gonna have an event? It's not obviously 24 hour. There is a specific timings.
Yes, this is a 3-day event, and starting from Friday to Sunday. The running time of the entertainment for Friday would be starting at 12 to 10:30, and also Saturday. For Sunday, it would be 11 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Adeshwar.
Thanks, Chair. My question is, how many maximum people allowed in the event?
The maximum capacity on Friday would be 13,000, and on the weekend would be 15,000.
Any more questions? No. Okay, I would like to invite the objectors to come up, please.
Just before I start, could I just say that there are some errors in the office's presentation, I'm very sorry to say, which do need to be corrected on things like fencing and access. And there are also odd statements have been made about staff working long hours. It's the enforcement team that is there because they're paid to be there, staffing rather the noise line. They just happen to be staffing it at the festival rather than somewhere else. So it's their job to do this. They don't need to be paid to do it. It is the role that we're already paying them for through their salaries. And there are some other, and it's not that they're taking a keen interest, they are there because it's their job.
Moving on, start, please.
And could I also ask you, sorry, to say 30 seconds and not a sentence when you're warning me, just the 2 words is great, if that's all right. Thank you. I'm Councillor Joanna Biddulph of Chiswick Gunnersbury Ward. I have to make a declaration. I live in the ward and directly opposite Gunnersbury Park, but I'm representing residents and local businesses' concerns, not my own. I'd like to do 2 things. First, set the context, and second, look at the 4 planning points you have been asked to consider. The context. The whole of Gunnersbury Park is in the ward, as are residents and businesses along its east, north and west sides. Strangely, the report summary ignores the west, 480 homes in the Gunnersbury Park Garden Estate, some backing onto the park, as does the International School of London, as does St Dunstan's Church and the Vicarage, and the Gunnersbury Cemetery. They're all forgotten for some reason. Plus, the impact is felt further away across the whole of Chiswick, in Acton, Ealing and Shepherd's Bush. The largest event held in the park used to be the Mela, which was community-orientated, not intrusive, and enjoyed by residents. In summer 2018, the CIC organised its first large music festival. Lovebox Citadel was 3 days of intolerable noise and uncontrolled antisocial behaviour from 40,000 attendees each day. I was inundated with complaints from residents and businesses and worked through both nights answering emails and messages going out during the days to troubleshoot. Front doors rattled alarmingly, pictures on walls clattered, sofas shook. A torrent of people filled the pavement. There was a river of litter, a lack of stewards, the stench from the portable loos at the top of Princess Avenue, drug dealing, shops and restaurants cut off from customers because of badly placed barriers, and more. My report to the CIC summed up the mood of that year: never again. COVID intervened, many residents enjoyed their local park. In 2002, the Gunnersbury Live Festival erupted and unexpectedly brought a resident of Acton telling me the sound was topping out at 63 decibels at his home and the bass was rattling his windows 1.5 miles away from the park. He told me he organised music events and knew about acoustics. He produced a sound management report which was presented to the 2023 Chiswick Area Forum. That was game-changing and led to a voluntary reduction in sound levels from 75 to 73 decibels. So it's not new. It doesn't relate just to this festival. It exists already because some improvements have been made. And that's the sound at homes, not at the stage. It also included the suppression of 2 of the lower frequencies that caused vibrations that rattled the doors and shook the sofas. There have been some other improvements, too little, too late, and seemingly begrudging. Then this year, Crank Brother destroyed all progress that had been made, and I'm pretty sure that the CIC agrees with that. Nevertheless, residents have moved away from never again. They know the park needs money. The crucial points are how it should be raised and the need to recognise this is a local park, not a corporate venue. The CIC is unelected, undemocratic, and unaccountable. Residents don't know what each festival brings in income or who is paid what. They can't enjoy their park during summer. They see parkland deteriorating. After years of asking for reasonable change, rather than email committee members before this meeting, huge numbers shrugged and said, "What's the point?" That must change. Moving to my second point, the 4 main planning aspects you're asked to consider. Please don't be lulled by the officer's report into thinking everything seems all right to you and what's all the fuss about. This has been the problem from the start, that warm words equal actions. They don't. And that whatever actions there are enough. They aren't. Ignore comments such as the structures are not permanent. The fact is they remove huge areas of the park from public use for over 100 days during the best weather months when far more people want to enjoy their local park. Temporary structures are highly impactful and residents resent it. And there's little way throughout the period. It was closed this morning. You might have found the one gap, but it's not accessible fully. So planning point 1, the acceptability of the proposal. We know the CIC needs money, but these events are inappropriate and far too frequent. The impact on the park and conservation area, residents who are speaking will give you the detail. The impact on
You have 30 seconds left.
the impact of surrounding residential properties. This is the most impactful, as I hope my comments have made clear. The impact on traffic and parking, more work is needed on this. Some of it's in Ealing, which makes it more complicated, but I'm not fighting. And please consider conditions. A reduction in decibel levels at the stage, and therefore a lower decibel level at residents' homes, that the CIC must engage properly with residents to come to an amicable agreement about what is acceptable, working with them for change significance.
Thank you very much. 5 minutes are up.
Thank you. Any members like to ask questions, please? No? Councillor Marine Sham.
Thank you, Councillor Biddulph. Just a quick question. With the community mealer that you talked about, I wasn't a member of the council back then, elected. Was that a free event for the community?
Well, nor was I, and I don't know. Perhaps somebody else can answer. I don't know. I really don't know, but it was a community event. These events certainly aren't free, and there are very few, if any, tickets for residents. There used to be some in the past, but it's very hard to get them.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you, Joanne. Can I call forward the other objective, please? While we're getting your presentation up, if you just want to introduce yourselves.
You can tell we don't do this often. Hi, I'm Sissy Donovan. This is Anton Henriksen. He'll be helping me with questions. I'll be delivering the speech whenever you're ready.
We'll start now then, please.
Well, we need the slides first, please. But yes, I brought you some drugs today, just in case you need them after your previous stuff one.
Are you happy to start now?
Go for it.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Good evening, councillors. I'm here to speak about 4 serious failings: predetermination, noise, the 20-day planning limit, drug use, and public safety. Let me be clear. I'm under no illusion. The organizers know this will be approved. The CAC knows it, and most worryingly, so do you, the councillors that are here to protect us. Tickets were sold over a year ago, before planning. That is predetermination. Yet we are here today because we still believe in accountability, because you have a legal and moral duty to represent residents, not promoters, not the subcontractors, not the CIC, whose board this council sits on. That is conflict of interest, and the public sees it. Let's be honest, Waterworks is not a cultural event. It's a daytime rave that brings drugs and antisocial behavior. Next slide, please. Noise. This is a 90-day takeover of the Metropolitan Open Land with greenbelt level protections, with permission granted by this committee to blast 90 decibel at resident and heritage buildings in a conservation area. That exceeds the WHO Health guidelines, the expert guidelines that the POP Code presents, as it applied to Hyde Park at 65 decibels, Households' own premises license of 75 decibels. Why is 90 decibels being allowed to shake buildings when FOIA evidence shows your own licensing department asked for 70? Vanguardia, the CAC noise consultant, falsely claims the license already permits 90 decibel. It does not. They cite other parks, but the ones we've checked, including Hyde Park, do not have 90 decibels bus in their license. Has the council verified any of these claims? No. Has it done its due diligence? No. This contravenes the policy EQ5 of the Walco Plan and D14 of the London Plan, which require protection of the following sensitive locations: Lionel Primary and International School of London. Note here, waterwork happens during term time. The children's playground directly next to the site, vulnerable residents at the mental health halfway house, Patients at Clay Pond Hospital, mourners at the cemetery, and protected wildlife, including bats, hedgehogs, and owls. Next slide, please. The 28-day planning limit. The High Court's Burlington Park ruling against Lambeth Council this year confirmed councils and parks must assess cumulative use, not cherry-pick events. Gunnersbury is booked for 98 days of commercial events this year, with parks signage showing 116. That's over 4 times the legal limit under town and country planning. Setup and breakdown count, weddings, cinemas, filming, all count. The CAC has applied for only 3 events this year. Pub in the Park and Crank Brother alone exceeded the 28-day limit. Happy Place didn't apply at all. The footprint of these events has now quadrupled. Not 1, but 4 event sites rotate. 1, the usual site, Waterworks, Festival Republic, etc. 2, Crank Brother. 3, Happy Place. 4, the museum and orangery. Instead of displaying artifacts are now used for weddings, private events, the green for cinema, pride, etc. Red areas are roads that are fenced off. Imagine Junction 2, but all summer long. Next slide, please. Damage and protected animals. We walk the site. We see compacted soil, dead grass, dumped wood chip and sand, damaged commemorative trees. What we don't see anymore is the protected bats, the hedgehogs, and the owls. There's no independent oversight, just a so-called restoration plan written by the CAC consultants. That's marking your own homework. Next slide, please. Drugs. And now look at that trolley. We are told collecting trolleys of nitrous oxide canisters by Waterworks is a job well done. Let that sink in. Drug litter is being rebranded as community care. Is that what Hansel stands for? Drugs. Here is what we find in front of our homes. And yes, these are drugs. There is drugs everywhere in London, but not at the scale these events bring. Where there is C drugs, there is also Class A's. And there is no police in front of our homes and schools. We are afraid. Where is the proof of public benefit? There is none, just drugs. You cannot override policy just because a promoter calls a rave cultural. You cannot justify harm to the public with vague fundraising promises. We're not anti-festival. We understand the park needs money, but planning must be woeful. If this continues, legal action may be necessary. Residents don't want that. It will cost the council a lot of money. But if this is rubber stamped like Festival Republic and Soho House were, there will be no choice. Next slide, please. So tonight we ask you, do your duty. Don't treat residents as background noise.
You now have 30 seconds left.
This is our home, our children's playground and classrooms. We say no to 90 decibel bus. We say no to the race marketed as culture. Stand with the public, not with promoters. This is a public park, not arena, not a drug den. You may approve this, but you don't have to make it easy. You add conditions, set limits, demand oversight, stop the 90 decibel bus, because the people who elected you deserve better. Stand with us, please, not against us. Thank you.
Please now finish. Thank you.
Oh, I nailed it.
Thank you. We're now open to questions. Anyone has a question? Yeah, Councillor. Yeah.
Just about something that was said at the beginning. The objector mentioned conflict of interest and predetermination. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. That was what was up on the board. But accusing us or the council or the CIC of there being conflict of interest and predetermination. I just want legal advice to be clear. Everything that we can be clear that everything in the report and the council is sitting here now are not predetermined and don't have a conflict of interest against what's being said. Because I don't want that to go away from this thinking that there's some nefarious aspect going on. People out there thinking that we're deciding things before we should.
No, I don't think there's any reasonable cause for people to form that view that there's any form of predetermination with any part of the authority, whether it is at officer or at member level. That just isn't the case. Obviously, if that were the case, then there would be serious consequences, but there are no such circumstances known to me in relation to this at all. And you've got to realise that predetermination is one issue that is a no-go area. You've got other areas where people have a predisposition for a certain line of argument because of their persona and the area of service on other public bodies, but that in itself is not producing a closed mind. You can still have an open mind with a predisposition. It's a predetermination that's fatal where there is a closed mind, and I don't see any evidence of this.
And the fact that the applicants, whether they have or haven't, I've no idea, but the objector said the applicants were selling tickets to this event a year ago. The fact that they've been doing that is in a sense irrelevant to our decision now, because we can decide one way or the other based on what we see now. They would obviously have to pay the money back if that was the case. So it doesn't matter either way, does it, against our decision now?
No, you, provided you are continuing to apply, as we all say in the famous words, an open mind to all issues, as at this point in time, what may have happened last year, because it doesn't affect your consideration of the issue, does not affect your ability to determine the matter and to vote on the issue.
Okay, anybody else? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. I'm just happy I managed to get it in 5 minutes.
Okay, can I invite the application people, please?
Thank you, Chair. Want to press go for our 5 minutes?
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'll do that
first?
on my time. So my name is David Bowler from Gunnersbury Community Interest Company. I'm joined by Chris Jones, who's our planning consultant, and this is Tom Payne from Team Love, that actually organises the 3 music events that are broadly termed waterworks, which are the subject of this temporary change of use application. Mr. Jones, I shall go.
Yes, good start. Thank you.
The Community Interest Company is 100% owned by an independent charity, the Gunnersbury Museum and Park Development Trust. It exists solely for the upkeep of Gunnersbury Park and the maintenance and delivery of the museum services to both Ealing and Hounslow Council. We have a joint contract with yourselves and with Ealing Council. 100% of the incomes generated by any and every commercial activity undertaken by the charity subsidiary is reinvested into the park. There is no leakage from that system. The application we put forward is for the Waterworks event. This will be the 5th year running that we have hosted this event. To give you an example of the customer base, the Friday afternoon and evening session by Annie Mack, currently ticket holders, average age is 48 years and 85% of purchasers are women. I say this because of the accusations levelled around drug use. I would suggest that that is not a typical high drug use audience. In terms of our audiences for Saturday, the average age for that is 28 years. This is not a predominantly young audience. In terms of our work to ensure that the ground conditions are maintained, I would stress that we are working actively with Hounslow Council's ecology officer, and actually the council's ecology officer did a baseline survey of the park only 2 weeks ago. So we are very open about the impact of any events on what is low quality sports turf. We do not hold these events anywhere near the nature trail or the Potomac. So we steward the park. We invite highly professional individuals in the form of Team Love to run this event. And our audience, I would venture, is a more mature audience than perhaps you've been given the impression of. I don't know whether, Chris, you want to add anything?
I think it's important to flag that the parameters that are proposed in this application are entirely within the license application that has been granted by the council. And indeed, many of the parameters are more stringent than what the council has previously approved within that license. And the main example being the noise level and the more stringent regime of noise monitoring. In addition to that, the parameters are also consistent with the granting of planning permission for 2 events already this year, and also the granting of planning permission for waterworks in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So the application before you for the 3 days is entirely consistent with those applications that have already been granted and the license that's already been granted. So obviously no material plan consideration that would justify a deviation from that positive determination. I don't know, Tom, whether you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah,
Thank you. Just to add, I think the presentation that Councillor Biddulph gave and CC, it talked about a lot of other events in the park. It wasn't specifically our event. Just to give you an example, you know, the police, through our negotiations with them and conversations with them, they don't believe that we need police at our event. They're happy for us to police it. They don't believe there's a risk of crime or the licensing conditions. We had 0 arrests last year. And actually, that's a lie. We had 1 arrest and 1 de-arrest over the same gentleman over the 3 days. That's the only incident in our event. We had 3 complaints on the Saturday regarding antisocial behaviour and 6 complaints on the Sunday regarding antisocial behaviour. Noise is a problem. It's a problem for every festival and every metropolitan park around the country. We have worked very hard over the last 4 or 5 years. I believe there was an event that has caused issues earlier this year. It wasn't our event. It has undone some good relationship with the residents, but we've been trying to make improvements every single year. And then one clarification as well about local residents. We have actually given almost 200 tickets to local residents around the park who have applied for them. Also, our sales on the Saturday, we've done 641 sales in the Hounslow Ealing area, and on the Friday for Annie Mac, we've done 830 sales, which is almost 10% of our total sales in that immediate area. So local residents do come to these events. They do enjoy these events. They are recreational events in the park. I think that's it from me.
You now have 30 seconds left.
The final 30 seconds, I would say, in addition to Tom's complimentary tickets over the summer, we will have given out 2,000 complimentary tickets to local residents. The area we give those to is just under 6,000 households in both boroughs, because we do straddle the political boundary. So we do try and ensure people who want to come can come for free if they live close to the park.
Your time is now finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Dunbar?
Thank you. You pretty much answered most of the questions I had, but there's just one I'd like to just a little more on, and it's this question of culture, and cultural benefit is listed by reason as the officer. Obviously, the objectors are saying this is not culture. This is crime and drugs, etc. So I just wanted to give you a bit of space, or ask you to just paint us the picture of what is the cultural benefit of this event.
I'm going to turn to Tom from Team Love, who has much more nuanced understanding of the niche that some of these music fans belong to.
Thanks. I mean,
and I'll say you could probably talk for 2 hours on this,
I'll
but
try
I'm
and be
sure you
quick.
won't.
Yeah, I'll try. I mean, no. Look, culture is subjective. Different people enjoy different types of culture. We are 3 days of music. Annie Mac, as we've said, is an older crowd. It's kind of like disco and house and stuff. It's a very female crowd. The Saturday Walkworks is a very specific niche, strong following of music. They're very into this music. We've sold 350 tickets outside of the UK because people travel here to listen to this music and this lineup, because it's such a niche kind of specialist electronic music. And then the Sunday is probably the most up for debate on a cultural, but it's a drum and bass day. But again, very kind of passionate fans of drum and bass music that come across the country to come to this event. This Drum and Bass All Stars tours around the world, and Gunnersbury Park is its only UK festival event, basically. So, like I say, culture is subjective, but along these lines, these people are very passionate fans of this culture.
Councillor John Stewart-Turf.
Yeah, just I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this or not, but you said that the primary aim you have is to reinvest everything you make into the park and the infrastructure of the park for the betterment of the park. That's good. So, a ballpark, what sort of, because obviously some of the letters we got as members of the committee, and there was a sort of suggestion that this was some money-making scam. Clearly, you've gone somewhere to dispelling that. How much are you ballpark expecting to get back that you'll be reinvesting in the facilities in our borough?
Okay. Context, when we went live, we inherited a £30 million heritage restoration deficit. So there is a very significant deficit in the listed buildings that as a charity, we are obliged over our 25-year term to try and address. So we are dealing with a long-term project and big numbers. I cannot, for reasons of commercial confidentiality, tell me how much the man next door pays to the charity. But what I would say is the total gross yield from events this summer across all the events, whether under 28 days or whether they are subject to planning, is in the region of around about £800,000. Now, if one considers that the total fee payment to us from yourselves as Hounslow is 250 grand, we actually make far more of our income from hiring out the park for what we believe are generally, and I accept the exception that the councillor made about the one new event this year, we work with reputable organisations to provide a reputable experience to people, and 100% of that fee goes back into the park. Some of that, council, will go into reserves because we have to somehow build a fighting fund, because if we do apply for lottery funding, you only get 50% of the ask. You have to match it, and it's unlikely that the local authorities will have match funding, so we're anticipating we'll have to do that ourselves. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful. And just for the record, 100% of what you make either goes to run down your debt or gets reinvested back into the park.
Absolutely. And in the rundown debt, we are carrying the last year of a £250,000 loan that we had to take out from Ealing for our mobilisation when I set the CIC up. So some of this is paying down debt to one of your local authority partners, but you're absolutely right. It either goes into the reserves or it's revenue spend in year.
Thank you very much, sir.
Councillor Maureen Sharma.
Chair, thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you. Good for my back. Sorry, I just wanted to address, obviously, the resident with her nitrous oxide canister that she has there. Obviously, we don't want to be seeing that on the streets. Is there anything that you can do as a CIC and as an event organizer to try to maybe minimise? I know you can't stop people doing it if they're going to do it. You know, if they're going to go to a festival and they're going to do it, they're going to do it anyway. But is there anything that you can do to maybe address that differently, or working alongside the police or the enforcement, or whatever?
Absolutely.
What have you done?
A couple of things. One, each event we hold has to go to a number of SAGs, SAGs, Safety Advisory Groups. You will probably be aware that as well as multiple council officers, the Met Police are at those meetings. So the Met risk score all the events. And as you've said, they've risk scored Tom's as a very low risk event. Having said that, the conversations that ensued after the recent riotous Chiswick Area Forum with Council Officer Lorian Kelly, who's from Environment Regulation, Lorian recognised that there is an enhanced role for enforcement in the public realm. As a charity, our mandate ceases at the gate of the park. We simply have no locus. We're not authorised persons under the Local Government Act. There's also an issue about the border with Ealing. The border with Ealing starts on the other side of Pope's Lane from my front gate. And I think Lorian, forgive me for speaking on an officer's behalf, but Lorian, I think, was very clear at the area forum that council officers from this council need to work with officers from Ealing, who have to all co-own the freehold of the park. So Ealing have skin in the game. And I think that's probably where it lies, councillor, is those agencies that have got authority in the public realm, we will work with them. What I would say, however, and this is tangential to this application, but the application that was awarded and the gigs that start tomorrow, we've got the organisers to have additional 6 SIA, security industry accredited personnel, who will effectively act as a mobile unit to go out and dissuade. They can't arrest or issue fines, but we will do whatever we can as a park charity, but we want to work with enforcement.
Councillor Tom Bruce.
Yeah, can I ask about your engagement, really? That's the sort of crux of my question. I don't know, I've had maybe 8, 10 emails about this and concerns around what it is. We've heard from Councillor Biddulph and some residents tonight. Clearly there, I mean, there's, I don't know what it was, 4 objections within the report, but I'm sure there are other people who are not happy equally. On the other hand, you're saying, well, we give out these free tickets. There are people locally who've also bought tickets, so some people might be. It's in terms of what's your engagement been, what have you done, you know, historically this year, what your plans next year, because regardless of what you've done or what, there is a bit of a disconnect between certain groups and some people, and how are you going about trying to address those? Because I think you would recognize that needs to be part of what you're doing, and whether that's yourselves, whether that's with your partners who are coming in or whatever, just on that.
We actually, so the first thing is we letter drops 5,700, forgive me the exact number, around about 6,000 households. Now that footprint has morphed over the years when we've received greater noise complaints, for example, from another postcode. We will broaden that letter drop. That offers anybody that receives that letter and multiple opportunities to engage with us either online or in person in consultation meetings. The take up this year has been extremely low.
So you have meetings, you have engagement meetings that people are invited to. Because I was just trying to understand the difference between, you know, we're all councillors here, we go and drop leaflets and we say, get in touch if you want to. A handful do, but when it's please actively do this, or we hold an event, that's much more popular. So you're doing
we've had them in person. At times they haven't worked because unfortunately it's quite an emotive subject, and sometimes those meetings frankly have fallen into disarray because of conduct. So we went to an online model this year. Take up has been pitifully low. That is not the fault of the residents. That means we're not doing something right. So Councillor Bruce, I accept we need to do more. One of the things that we're trying to do is we've employed somebody very recently in a new role, which is visitor engagement. We got her from Q. Admittedly, she's used to dealing with Q members, but the thing is about Q is they steward their visitors and their membership very, very well, partly because I'm sure you know how much it costs to join. We want to bring that level of resident care, and I've got the right person to do that. We will be better next year. It's the park's 100th anniversary as a public park next year, and we have a whole program of community engagement. And it's not just celebration, it's listening. And we do listen. CC and I have had chats, we don't agree, but hopefully she will say, we do listen and we do engage, but we can always do more, and we will. But we are very open about this, that all our trustees, with the exception of our chair, either live in Ealing or Hounslow. I'm not governed by a bunch of remote trustees. Every single one of them is a local resident. They don't want to govern a charity that is seen to be disconnected from its community. And so I've got pressure from my trustees to do more. We will do more. We haven't done it as well as we should. I've conceded that to Councillor Biddulph. We will do better.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Further sort of on that is just I mean, I'm not in this industry, so I don't know, but the connection between yourselves as the CIC and yourself as a music promoter, is that fair to say? You work, you know, not just with Tom, but with other groups as well. You're saying, and it was alluded to a bit earlier, one promoter / event hasn't gone as well. And when that happens, I mean, are you reflecting on that? Is there a sense that they won't be back? You know, if that happens in the future, you know, things happen that you can't anticipate, and you go in, I'm sure everyone goes in with the best of intent, and it goes wrong. So how are we responding to that? How are we learning from that? All of those kind of things. But
the event concerned, it was their first time in the park. They came in at the maximum capacity on our license, which essentially is double the capacity that Tom runs at. Respectfully, I have to withhold some of my comments because we're in a commercial relationship with them, but I would use the term hubris. They thought they knew how to put something on in our park. We gave them very strong advice that certain bits of ingress and egress were probably not going to work as well. They discounted that. But what I would say is the problem with Crank Brothers was antisocial behavior in the public realm. They were as shocked, as I've spoken to the two proprietors, two brothers, they were as shocked as the residents were about how poorly some of their attendees apparently behaved. But them being shocked isn't good enough for residents. They either massively change, and that means we are not going to allow them to come in at that level of capacity, and they need to do a hell of a lot of reassurances, or they're not coming back. What I would say to that, however, councillors, is the funding from the two councils for Gunnersbury ceases in 2028. So from 2028, current trajectory, I have to run a charity that is entirely self-sustaining, turning down a very significant offer they made, very, very significant financial offer, to balance that against the well-being of residents is something that you have to do here at planning. It's a balancing act, and I'm pretty sure which way I want to go.
Okay, Councillor Dan.
Yeah, just a quick question. Does the council, on your board of trustees, is there a representative from the council? And if not, do you think that'd be a good idea?
There's a representative. There is one of your cabinet member colleagues sits as a trustee, and similarly a cabinet member from London Borough of Ealing Council sits as a trustee. We have very thorough conflicts of interest policy, and you'll be unsurprised that your councillor colleagues do seek advice from your own legal services if at any point they feel their role as a trustee and councillor may have any conflict whatsoever. We are acutely conscious, I am, of not exposing those councillors to any danger of conflict of interest.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to open the floor for debate. Councillor Marina.
Thank you, Chair. I can lift it. I have hands. That's okay. I'd just like to say, obviously, you know, with regards to culture. Now, I'm very open-minded, but I actually attended, actually this time last Thursday, I was in Essex. I was attending a heritage festival at the Audley End House and Gardens, which was obviously a heritage site, and apart from bit much in a larger scale than Gunnersbury Park, it was very similar. It's charity led. Culture is very important. It's very important for all of us, and I think it's very important for our children as well, because I'm 50. I've got a 14-year-old. Some of these things growing up she may like, and things like that. We've got a lot of things to be considering. I think that we also need to consider our neighbours as well and work collectively together. But it would be very sad. It would be very sad to see Gunnersbury Park without the charity. I think it would be very sad to see it go to rock and ruins, so to speak, which I'm hopeful that obviously it's not going to. Sorry?
No. Don't go.
Can I get you to be quiet, please? I can't have.
We all need. I think we all need to. I mean, I'm very open. I'm still open-minded. I have not made a decision at all. We need to all work. We all need to work together for the betterment of our community.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard the officers, we've heard some objections about it. There were very few objectors in the report that put themselves forward here, and we've had some emails and stuff, and we've heard from the applicant about the importance of this and the significance of this, and again, culture is subjective, and that kind of thing. I live very, very close to Twickenham Rugby Stadium on the Hounslow side, but it's incredibly close, and we are impacted. I am impacted by the events that take place there. There's no two ways about that. A lot of what happens at Twickenham Rugby Stadium is very positive, but there are things that go wrong. I mean, it's an incredibly well-run organisation. The event days work incredibly well, but still things go wrong. And the community developments, community support team there are very responsive to things that are suggested, and try to mitigate where possible. And I feel that is what's being said here. There are reflections on events that have taken place. There is learning that has taken place as we go. We talk about noise reduction over the years. It may not be enough, and perhaps that needs to continue to come down. There are things that happen outside of the event organisers and the CIC's control, similarly to the way that the rugby matches and events at the rugby stadium are organised as well. It's about getting that balance. I would not want to see rugby matches and events stop at Twickenham Rugby Stadium, even when there are issues. I similarly think that this is a positive thing for Gunnersbury Park. I think it is for Hounslow. I think, there's plenty of stuff to talk about. 300 and something people coming from abroad to come specifically here to Hounslow, to come to an event here, spend some money in our borough, visit Gunnersbury Park, which is, a fantastic place, I think is a very positive thing. So again, it's like everything in planning. It's about weighing up the pros and cons. And I think there is more in favour of supporting this than not. That would be my view, having heard what we've heard this evening.
Councillor Dan Bowen.
Yeah, I agree with everything Councillor Bruce says. Obviously, it's tricky managing the conflict here, managing the difference. But I think crucially here, I can see no planning reason for this to be refused. It's been recommended for approval by the officer, and I think we should approve it.
Anyone seconding that? Okay, we'll go straight to the vote then. Okay, please put your hands up for 4. Okay. Any against? And any sustained? No.
That was passed unanimously to approve by a vote of 13 to none. No abstentions.
Thank you. I can't have you speaking up. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next application, and that's Rivers Academy. Who's taking that one?
Members, if I may, sorry, just before the presentation starts, so there is 2 applications on the school. One is for a full school, one's for a temporary permission. What Charlotte's going to do is she's going to do both presentations as one at the request of the chair, and then maybe we'll take both questions at the same time, but there will need to be 2 separate votes at the end of the discussion. So that's what we'll be doing. So just no objections, which will be okay, cool.
Good evening, everyone. The first scheme we have is the full main school redevelopment. Oh. Yeah. Bear with us. We are back. So the scheme we have is a redevelopment for an existing school at Rivers Academy in Feltham. So what we have in front of us is the application site. Bear in mind, the site consists of two parcels of land. The one identified in the red line boundary over here is the application site for the main school redevelopment. The blue line boundary is the play fields for the site, which is part of the temporary application, which we will address later on. To be noted, the school consists of multiple blocks. Rivers Academy is a second. Yeah. All right. Rivers Academy, to get into the brief of it, is a secondary school with sixth form. Part of the site also consists of a second school, which is the Space Studio, which is a technical college. This school does not form part of the application. A couple of things we need to bear in mind is that the existing development would not result in any change to the existing capacity or intake. So student capacity would remain at 1275, including 225 for sixth form, and the staff would full-time staff capacity would remain at 150, with a current of 109. The redevelopment program works are being carried out by the DFE, is also the applicant, under its school rebuilding program, which overlooks major rebuilding and refurbishment projects in schools and sixth form colleges across England, where building works are prioritized according to their condition. And this particular school formed part of their 2022 round, mainly because of the existing condition of the main academic block here, which is also part locally listed, and their sports block over here. Also to bear in mind is an existing Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, which forms part of the SRP works, which is school rebuild works. There will be a few abbreviations. Do give me a shout if anything needs clarification. Regarding the MOU, as these works are being carried out under the SRP program, they would not include funding either directly or indirectly for works that may be required under the Highways Act or the Town and Country Planning works. So these would extend to Section 278 and Section 106 works. The cost of any such works has been agreed to be met by the council team. In the next few slides, we'll see a few photographs of the site, both external and some internal photographs. So this would be the main entrance on Touchbrook Road. This is a secondary entrance on Letchworth Avenue, which is towards this play school, towards the play fields. This is the academic and the reception block, which is on one side, you will see the original 1935 block, and here is its extension in 1988. The front of the building is a later 2013 addition. These are photographs of the main 1935 locally listed building. This is the 1988 edition. These are photographs of the conditions of the school that has been shared within the report. So we see issues with brickwork, cracks within the structural wall, corroding, steelwork, damages to the roof, ingress water damages. So most of the buildings that have been identified within the demolition and feasibility report notice issues regarding vertical cracking to brickwork, concrete defects, corroded rebars, moisture ingress, which might require complete replacement of the roof, insulation, and significant repairs. They have provided a detailed structural survey report, detailed demolition feasibility report, and overall the conclusion is that given the vast defects that have been identified, the school would be considered to be in very poor condition, leading to massive health and safety risks. There are several parts of the school that are currently under restricted access. DFE has considered refurbishment, but has ruled it out because and opted for a demolition and rebuild approach, given the preliminary costs of the refurbishment works would deem the entire scheme unviable. Also, the duration of the work and the disruption would be significantly greater. Even if the refurbishment works were taken up, the lifespan of the buildings would not exceed more than 25 years, which would not meet the DFE's 50-year building life expectancy requirements. Yes, there would be the loss of the locally listed heritage building. However, it's not a statutory listed building. The applicant's heritage impact assessment notes that the heritage implication of this loss would be minimal due to its limited evidential and architectural value. Given their justification of the report and the fact that they've considered refurbishment option extensively and considered it unviable, we consider their overall justification to its unsuitability acceptable. Also part of the scheme is the dining block, which would be located to the south block. This would not be demolished, in fact, would be retained and refurbished. This is an image of the space studio, which is the second school on site that does not form part of the application. In front of us, we have the proposed school plan. What the site or the redevelopment program offers is a single super block consisting of the academic uses and a linked sports block. So overall, it would provide us a gross internal area of 9,400 square meters, and its height would go up to 15 meters on one side and 10.5 meters on the other side where the sports block is, which is to the south. In front of you are elevations of the proposed block as they have visualized it, and some images of the 3D view. Please bear in mind these are representative only and may have minor inaccuracies, but the applicant has tried their best to provide a good understanding of what the development will look like. This is a brief overview of what the phasing would be. So what it tries to show is that the school would run in tangent to the construction works. So to support these, we would have temporary school provisions on the detached playfield side, which will be part of a temporary permission discussion later on. The existing school would be cordoned off for demolition and redevelopment, and parts of the existing school would still remain in use, and these would be phased out once the new block comes up. As part of the development, we would expect the following under the Section 106 contribution, which would include construction training, community use engagement for the indoor sports hall, some highway works. These would be limited to technical drawings and improvements to crossings outside the main school entrance on Touchbrook Road and the school and the entrance between the school site and the playfield site on the Letchworth Avenue side. Again, due to the MOU in place, the funding of these works would be taken up by the council's asset strategy rather than the applicant, which is usually the case. Also, we would be requesting a travel plan, and the works would be carried out under the considerate contractor scheme. While we do have some concerns about the design quality of the building, our officers have noted on multiple occasions concerns about the massing, relationship of internal and external spaces. The applicant has highlighted that the school has been designed in accordance with DFE's guidance and in consultation with the school's team and their needs. Therefore, this application must be assessed against the planning balance, where the key outcomes would be an enhanced educational provision, which means that the existing It would result in the replacement of existing infrastructure, which are in poor conditions, and would provide modern and fit for contemporary teaching practices. It would provide improved sustainability and energy efficiency. We would be expecting a BREEAM excellent building with energy savings of over 144%. It will achieve net zero carbon in operation, measures to reduce long-term operational costs. It would meet DFE's exemplar design standards as per the output specification. We would also have improved sports and recreation facilities and community access. The indoor sports facility would have a community use agreement attached to it. There would be improved biodiversity and urban greening achieved on site. There will be an increase of 10% biodiversity, an improved urban greening score of 0.376. And there would be additional planting and additional ecological measures such as bat and bird boxes. There should also be highlighted that there would be expected economic and employment benefits as improved facilities would help the continued employment of the 109 full-time staff that we currently have on site, with the capacity to increase to 150. Impact to neighbors would not be considered to be harmful. The proposed development would result in a much more compact footprint with increased separation of at least 38 meters from the nearest residential houses. We do believe the conditions that we have requested for the development would be sufficient to mitigate any other impacts, and these would be through transport, noise, air quality, ecological, and construction management conditions. I'm just going to quickly move on to the temporary scheme. Right. So then, to support the development of the main school, temporary school block would be erected on the detached playfield site. So this would be for a period of 153 weeks, including the setting up and removal of it. What is to be noted is that this particular site is designated as local open space. These are a few pictures. So we have the access on Letchworth Avenue. Sorry, that's wrong. This is the location where the temporary classroom block will go up. These are the existing Muga courts on site, which would be retained. This would be the proposed site plan where we have the 3-story classroom block go up in the center. The Muga courts will be retained as is. The other play provisions, which are usually marked out as per requirement, would be realigned as per the school's requirement. It should be highlighted that, yes, their policy context does resist development on local open space. However, there is also substantial support for the delivery of educational infrastructure and the use of temporary accommodation, especially when there is a long-term plan in place, which is the case for this application. The local open space is ancillary to the existing school use, as it's the playfield for the school site, and has no community use so far. The loss of playing fields will be temporary. Because of the impact on the playing fields, Sport England was consulted and they have noted no objection. We subject to a condition that would require the reinstatement of the previous playfield provisions in consultation with them. GLA was also consulted on the site, and they have noted no strategic issue on this scheme. It should be noted that there would be no car parking on this site. These will occur on the main school site. Cycle provision, however, would be provided here. This will be the elevation of the temporary block. This is a modular modular block which has been used on previous occasions as part of other school redevelopment programs. Again, we have seen this image before, and again, to highlight, it will be a phased construction to deliver the scheme, which would mean that there would be parts of the main school that would be still in use over here. So where the temporary school would go up. So there would be significant movement of students across both sites during the construction process. However, we do believe that the conditions that we have imposed in terms of transport, site management, operation, noise, air quality, ecology, and the reinstatement of the previous sports use are satisfactory to address these temporary impacts of the development. Harm to neighbors have not been considered to be significant, as there would be sufficient separation distance maintained of over 40 meters in most cases, and given the temporary nature of the scheme. Overall, approval is recommended for both the main school and the temporary scheme. Thank you.
Yeah, opening up for questions. Councillor John Turk. Quick one, yeah.
Just very quickly on the travel arrangements. Letchworth and Tatchbrook, are they school streets at the moment? They're not. No. I mean, I visited the school long before this was a thing. Visited the school and talked to the head at the time about traffic on Tatchbrook particularly, but also Letchworth. I mean, in fact, a car pulled out in front of me and, you know, was very close. And it was like, well, there you go. And I'm sure we've had email correspondence about it. Is that something we would want to be looking at? I would. As a council, though, would we want to be looking at some sort of measures in place? The second part of that is, it says in here, 7.6 about, and I can't really understand why, to do with the crossing between both school sites, that it says the council asset strategy team are going to be picking up the cost of that crossing. Why? Is my second bit.
Hi, I'll answer the second bit about the cost. I did mention there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed between the council because of the way the scheme is being delivered. So the scheme is a DFE scheme, which is being delivered under the school rebuilding program. And as part of the school rebuilding program, an MOU has been signed between DFE and the council that excludes the funding aspect for some of these works that stretch out to section 278, that's highway works, and also some under section 106 that would be part of the Town and Country Planning Act. Therefore, the cost of it would not be concerning. However, they will be picked up by the council's asset strategy team. The drawings and other works would be delivered by the applicant, but the funding is separate.
Yeah, just to answer your first point, Councillor Bruce. Yes, we have been out on site, or my colleagues from my team have been out on site with the school to look at road safety concerns. And I think that's set out in the report. I think we would look, and we have had discussions about whether this would be suitable for school streets, but because of the nature of the roads as through routes, there's a bit more work, design and feasibility work that needs to be done. So I think the answer is yes, but it would be in a future programme.
Cool. To be clear, I'm not wedded to school streets. It's more about the safety aspect of both the roads, particularly the crossing between the two school sites. But Tatchworth is particularly busy, so if school streets isn't appropriate, but just an understanding that I'm glad you've said that will be picked up at a later stage. That's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Rosa.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just give us a time frame when all of this is actually going to start to happen, please?
So their phasing indicates that work start from November 2025, so towards the end of November. This would include setting up the site for the temporary school and stretching up to, and then moving on to the actual main school site.
Thank you. So we are looking at sort of effectively almost sort of 3 years for this site to be built.
Yeah.
And the temporary school to be there for 3 years.
The temporary school would be there for a period of 153 weeks, so the permission is for a period of 153 weeks, which would include setting up, use of the school, and then dismantling. So
thank you.
All 3 phases. Yeah.
And just a follow-up question with this, where the temporary school is, of course, a lot of parents are going to be concerned because they do, of course, drop their kids by sort of car or bike or whatever. Is there any provision here? Because normally it's on Touchbrook Road, but the other roads?
Yes, so we have reviewed those arrangements, and we have also requested further details via conditions regarding site access and management.
And just a safeguarding aspect for the
Yeah,
kids in
so
the temporary?
it will cover all of that, yeah.
Okay, so we got no speakers on this, so we can go straight into debate. Councillor John Strater.
Yeah, just, I noticed that Sport England were content, but they put a condition. You probably covered it, and I missed it. Apologies if I did. But what was Sport England's conditions?
So because of the impact on the school field, Sport England became a statutory consultee regarding the temporary loss of the local open space in this case, and the loss of play provisions on this side. So they were consulted regarding the impact, and they did not note any objections because, one, it's a temporary use, two, the existing use as is would be reinstated at the end of the temporary expiry of the temporary permission, and they will be consulted about the details and the level of which the reprovision would take place. So all those details would be secured via a condition which the applicant would work in tangent with them to deliver on site.
Councillor Dan Barron.
Chair, this is, to me, it's a slam dunk. Notwithstanding, it's maybe not the most perfect design. We've got a crumbling school that's energy inefficient, and we're getting a beautifully new design one that's got outstanding sustainability credentials. So I think we should approve this. And I also believe while the school is being knocked down and being rebuilt, the kids should have somewhere to learn. So I think we should approve the temporary one as well.
I need a seconder. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Kaz, can I frame this one then? If that's okay. So first of all, can we ask for a vote on application P 2025-1058, which is the full application?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do the vote for.
Yep.
And no against. Abstained, no.
That was passed unanimously by 13 votes to nil.
I got a seconder, but I don't know if they were seconding both of my proposals.
Okay, and for the next one, we go for 4. Yeah. Against. Sustained.
And item 6 was passed unanimously, 13 to none.
Right, we're going to move to item 8.
Thanks, Chair. So item 8 is 10 Armour Road. This application is in front of you because it is an application that where a councillor who is not a member of the planning committee has an interest on the site. It's an application for a lawful development certificate, and oh no, it's an application for a lawful development certificate. The process for considering a lawful development certificate is outlined in sections 1.1 to 1.5 of the report. Effectively, what it is it's not a planning application. We're not considering policies. It is a tick box exercise to check whether or not planning permission is required in the first place. We do really need to get the the plan shown on screen in front of us. So apologies for this. We'll try and get it sorted, but that's the end of my presentation. So if you want to move to questions, maybe at this point, and I'll try and get this up on the screen, that'll be appreciated.
Councillor Dunn. Councillor Dan.
So obviously, Matthew, this is at the planning committee because there's a council got interest in it. aside from that, is there any other reason why it should be considered? Is it policy non-compliant in any way?
There is no other reason. It's not policy compliant, just because it complies with the general permitted development order, which is the criteria against which we're assessing this application.
Propose and
Yeah, that's it. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Propose to approve.
yeah. Second. Okay, we can go to a vote then. All for 4. Against? Sustained.
Item 8 was unanimously approved, 13 to none. There's the addendum to be noted.
We got the addendum report, what needed to be noted. Noted. It's any other business, which is nothing. And I don't know when the next date meeting is. Right. There's no date. Okay, we will let you know when the next meeting is. Thank you. Good night. Thank you very much.